The red and the black, a daily life gained by sacrificing everything. Colors seen in the shade tell of courage and madness. Lazy translators. They lack motivation. A bird chirped at a distance. Maybe today's weather will be fine. Picked up an egg from the grass fields wet and dew. NieR Replicant looked at the sky. This is the last one. Chickens lay 1 egg per day. It's not easy to miss one. Are you done? The hen owner called out to him just as NieR finished counting the eggs in the basket. NieR nodded and handed over the basket. Oh, good work. 1, 2, the man confirmed the number of eggs and smiled. My wife had just gotten better, so you don't need to come anymore. You were a great help. The man's wife had a fever 5 days ago and slept in. Gathering the eggs in the morning used to be her job. Here's the payment I promised, but are you sure that you don't need money or food? While the man's wife recovered, NieR woke up earlier than anyone in the village and gathered the eggs. What he wanted as payment for his job was a freshly hatched chick. Clever boy! Clever boy! A freshly hatched chick is not unbelievably expensive for the man, but it's unbelievably valuable when it becomes a chicken. Clever boy! But he's gonna need a rooster, you know? It's fine. Yona will be happy with this. I see. Well, just take one from the basket over there. All of them hatched yesterday. NieR couldn't really tell apart the chicks, but he chose the one that looked healthiest. The chick shrugged. Maybe he didn't want to leave its companions. Why am I getting a ad? You're supposed to be like, whatever. NieR held it in his hands, taking great care not to drop it or squeeze it too tightly, and ran toward the house. The village woke up fast. No one was on the roads when he left home, but now it was filled with crisscrossing villagers. While he was returning their greetings, a voice called out to him. It was the female owner of the food shop. You came at the right time, NieR. I heard that Popola asked you to pick up some herbs today. So can you please get me some mushrooms on the way as well? Popola's a drug addict. Now let me get that song running again. Let me get that song. She kinda is. Yeah, every day I need herbs, NieR. I need herbs. And drinking. Drinking and smoking and eating. I love that. Gimli's line from bloody Lord of the Rings, the Two Towers director's cut. We come to Isengard to find you drinking and smoking and it's like, join us. The pulled pork is especially good. Pulled pork. No, sorry, it was salted pork. Salted pork. See, I can remember shit like that, but I can't remember what day it is to stream today. Amazing. My mind is absolutely fucked. Okay. People don't really want to get out of the village. They find it dangerous and troublesome. They have to take great care when walking outside. They can't provoke the short-tempered wild animals, nor go near shadows of any kind. They can go outside in midday, and even then it's only for a few hours, in the mornings or evenings. They have to be close to the village or a city. How about I give you pumpkins as payment? I got some big and sweet ones. Yona likes them, doesn't she? Thanks, NieR answered, and took off again. Everyone in the village is nice. If they were not, then it wouldn't be surprising for a pair of orphan siblings like them to die out in the world, even if they had the house left behind by their parents. Oh no, don't say that. I already feel the sadness. Once he ran past the Fountain Plaza, NieR began to see their house. Someone's silhouette was shown on the window. It was Yona. She disappeared the next moment. Maybe she became aware of NieR's presence. Welcome back, brother. Before NieR even opened the door, Yona jumped out. Her breath was labored from running down the stairs. I'm back, Yona. I told you not to run in the mornings or evenings. Ah. Yona had a very weak body. She was bound to get sick with the flu whenever the season changes. And she would get a fever if she just slept a little later than usual. She couldn't even get too excited without developing coughs. Her stomach wasn't very strong either. She'd either get stomach cramps or throw everything up. I'm sorry, but if you are creating a replicant, could you not make minor modifications? Like, you know, the stomach nausea or the fever you get if you sleep in a little bit? I mean, come on. Come on. If you can pump out replicants, couldn't you just tweak them a tad? This is just cruel. Why would you do this? I'm sorry. Will I begin to cough unstoppably again? Have you seen any analysis video in NieR? I have a very long time ago when we watched some stuff yesterday. I mean, last week. That counts. Yeah. We'll be fine if you eat a good breakfast. Let's go in. It's rather cold and windy today. I brought something for you, NieR said while closing the door, and Yona's face lit up. What is it? He brought his hands close to Yona's ear. The chick, enclapsed in them, chirped quietly. But that was more than enough. A chick! You're right. Here, hold out your hand. He put the chick on top of Yona's hands. It was surprised at the sudden brightness, so it shrunk it into itself and began shaking. It's so fluffy and warm. It's still small, so you can keep it inside the house. Really? This really gets me because in Bosnia there were little chicks that were born and we kept them inside the house. A sad story because one accidentally got stepped on because it was because the door frame, it was kind of weird. Like, you have the living room area, so it's one of these really old houses. It's the ones I pointed out in Overlord episode 1 and 2. And you've basically got like this concrete slab of 4 steps. And you go into this entryway, which is basically glass on both sides. You've got cabinets on the left and right. And this is where people take off their shoes and whatnot, you know, because it's muddy, it's the countryside and all that. And then you walk into what is kind of like the living room area, but on the far end of it is basically an oven. This is basically where you could do things like bake bread, make breakfast, things like that. There's also a bed on the far end where my grandfather used to sleep. Let's face it, these places are not big, so when you've got a family in there, you make do with what you've got. On the left, you've got what was the living room and the bedroom, where you had 3 beds on the sides of the room, and you had a big dining room table next to the door, and you had a TV in a corner. That's pretty much the whole room. The only problem was from the center room to the room on the left or the right, the floor wasn't the same size because the land isn't perfectly flat. So you're standing on this level, and then you've got like an elevation of about this much, and then you go into the other room, but the other room has like a gap of maybe like this much, which is double the gap. Don't ask. Anyway, the little chick was, I believe, in the center room, and someone was coming in and out of the bedroom, and the chick ended up being right next to the doorway, and someone stepped on one of the chicks. And it was absolutely heartbreaking because the chick was very injured, and it was very weakly crying out in pain. I remember being really sad and wanting to nurse it back to health, but like, I don't remember who, but one of the adults probably figured out that it couldn't be nursed back, and then it was severely injured, and I think someone, you know, mercifully put it out of its misery. So, yay, NieR, you motherfucker. Oh god, who doesn't love their child? What is this? Shop Unstoppable Domains. What the fuck is this, and what does it have to do with my traumatic story? All I gotta say is people that grow up living on the land, they grow up quickly. They grow up quickly. When you're working the land, when you have animals, life is different. You don't just go to a supermarket to pick up pork. You raise the pig, it becomes a sow, or in some cases a piglet, and it gets sent to the slaughter, and it gets cleaned and gutted and everything, and you go through that whole process. And the whole cycle of life becomes very apparent at a very young age. Even more so if the place becomes a war zone, but you get my point. It's very different from people in the city. A lot of people in the city are sort of in a bubble separated from the way the world works. They pick up a carton of eggs, they pick up some bacon in like a plastic foil wrap, you know? They're sort of, they're spared that whole, process. And I get, even here in Australia, they sometimes put on the packages of the meat, like, my name was Daisy or my name was whatever, to try to deter people from eating meat. But I'm going to be honest, man. Like, I remembered from a very young age, like, I don't know, it was like 7 or 8. Even at that point, I knew, at some point, I'm going to eat the chickens that are running around, I knew that the eggs will either hatch into chicks or we're going to have them for breakfast, even young, in a very innocent way, I was aware of the cycle of life. And then, unfortunately, my grandfather passed away, so, you get your first experience with death, and then shortly after the war. So, here, fortunately, in Western countries, where people are not living in situations like that or living on the land, in farms and whatnot, they're not exposed to that. They're not exposed to that, So, it's very different. It's very different. Yeah. I edited the Replicant after NieR at the beginning of the story on the wiki, not sure how long ago. I did it because I thought it talked about father NieR, not brother NieR. I'm surprised it stayed. I don't know, maybe it got approved, maybe someone didn't. But you do the wikis, wow, that's cool. But yeah, well, this story is already taking me on a journey. This is what happens when I'm sometimes playing games like this and listening to stories like these. You guys hear and see the story. Meanwhile, I get a little bit of a flashback, and I'm a little bit shaken every single time. It's quite an experience for me. It's quite an experience. It's so fluffy and warm. It's still small, so you can keep it inside the house. Really? We kept someone mother was still alive. It was NieR's job to feed the chickens they kept in their front yard. Their mother was busy with keeping the family up and running by herself, and didn't have time to spare for that. You know what makes me sad? The fact that I know they didn't have chickens, it either meant they had to sell them, or they had to kill them to eat. Living or dead, his father didn't change their everyday lives. His mother grew vegetables in a small field made in the garden, tailored clothes at the request of the villagers, and repaired clothing. As far as he knew, his mother never stopped her hands. How many people in the West know of repairing clothing? How many households in the West have a sewing kit? How many kids in the West know how to do little minor sews and how to tie off the end of a needle? Or how to put the thread in the hole in the needle, just out of curiosity. I'm not being an asshole or anything. I'm genuinely curious. Because I don't think it's a thing here. Here, like, you just buy another one, right? Like, we don't fix anything. You know what I mean? It's a very different society. Whereas when you're in the countryside, especially back, pre-internet and SMS whoever you want, and of course reception is not perfect there either sometimes, you got to make do with what you've got, because you got to go to the main town in order to do any shopping. And even then, you don't have a massive supermarket where you can buy $5-10 t-shirts. You're dealing with stuff like that. When they finally did stop, so did his mother's time. That was 5 years ago. NieR had just turned 10, and Yona was 1.5 years old. Fuck. I question Popola and Devola every time that they create a new replicant NieR, because they clearly said that children aren't born. Popola and Devola just one morning come over to the house, whack them over the head with a bat, knock them out, and just leave a baby there, and surprise, you get birth to a baby. That's how I like to imagine the story. It came without any warning in a completely normal evening. NieR's mother turned around and told him to bring her the plate from the shelves while stirring the pot. She fell while keeping her posture. Not knowing what was going on, NieR ran out of the house and towards Popola's library. Being a manager of so many books, she'd be bound to enlighten him on the issue. Not only NieR, but everyone in the village believed that. However, Throwing one look at his fallen mother, Popola shook her head sadly. The abruptness of the death was unbelievable. She died as suddenly as an object breaking. Even after Popola's older twin Devila came to help with moving his mother into a coffin, even after the villagers began preparing for the funeral, he did not comprehend the reality of things. He didn't even cry. That's a weird feeling. I remember my grandfather died, and I told you guys the story. And I remember in the house, in the room that I described with the 3 beds on the left-hand side, the door was closed and it was basically awake. And I was that, little kid, and I opened the door and they were pretty much like preparing his body. They put him in a nice suit, they shaved his beard and things like that. And I remember seeing it. And I remember my cousins, my mother, my auntie, they were bawling their eyes out. And I remember I was just sort of like, I knew, I was told he died. But it was weird. Like, I loved my grandfather to death. He was the best guy ever. But at the same time, I wasn't bawling my eyes out like you know what I mean? I don't want to say I was like indifferent, but I was kind of, I don't think it hit me. Maybe because I was the young one. My cousins were older, obviously my auntie and my uncle older, my mother was older. I was like the young one. But it didn't quite hit me. It didn't really hit me. Don't get me wrong, I was the one that was crying in the car as we were leaving Bosnia, and my mother's like, what the fuck's going on? And I'm like, grandfather died. She's like, no fucking way. I'm like, he's dead. And then out of sheer luck, when she stopped, it was like a bus stop, when you go from Bosnia to Serbia, she called back, from the payphone. And she found out from my auntie that he did die. And then she looked at me like, what the fuck? Like, I felt it. We left and he was fine. And then I'm just crying in the car on the way to the bus stop saying grandfather died. And then she calls the phone and she finds out that he's dead. Like, what the fuck? And it's not even the only time it actually happened. So I think maybe that's when I cried my eyes out. But after that, I didn't really feel it. But he was such a gentle person. He was an incredibly gentle person. I remember, and this is a story, I don't actually remember it happening, but look, you guys know he lost his leg in the war when he was really young. And after his wife died, he was incredibly sweet. Before that, he was apparently a really hard ass, but you had to be. You're working the land, you're back from the war, it leaves things. But after that, he was particularly kind, particularly with us, his grandkids. And apparently, when we were out somewhere in a lake or something, apparently we actually pushed him in. And, obviously he's missing a leg and he's older and all that sort of thing. And obviously my mother and my auntie, they wanted to kill us. They wanted to kill us. And apparently he would not let them. And I know that my mother and my auntie were probably raised very harshly by him, as is the Slavic way. And their 2 daughters, and you know what I mean. Like, imagine Slavic parents. But with us, he was especially kind and gentle. And whenever they would get angry to us, we would actually run to him for protection because he wouldn't let them hurt us, like if we did something wrong. And my mother or our auntie was, pissed off, and, they grabbed, I think it's like ivy weed or something. That's what they basically do. They grab that little weed, and if you touch it on your hand, it stings like a bitch. So they won't hit you, but they'll grab that. And if they leave it for long enough, it leaves red marks. And we would just basically run to him, and he'd sort of like grab us, and he'd like be like, no, leave them alone. They're mine. You don't touch them, So in my memory, he's this really sweet old... In my memory, he's this... Wow, okay. Let me reset. Wow, I didn't see that one coming. There it is. There's the emotions. In my memory, he's this really sweet old guy. But I could sort of relate to NieR in this moment, where he didn't really comprehend the reality of things, that he didn't even cry. And it's like, I can get that. I can get that. This is bloody written by someone that's gone through a few things. That's all I can say. I know it doesn't seem logical from a rational standpoint, but you can tell that this bloody story comes from some fucking experience. Either the writer has read so many things, or the writer has had some experience. Let's continue before, my mind gets stuck in the past. Oh boy. Damn it, NieR. Stop this. He didn't even cry. No, during the funeral, he felt like crying once. The inside of his throat tightly, painfully, and his vision became blurry. But he stopped his tears immediately because Yona cried out first. Yona wasn't old enough to understand her mother's death yet. Yeah, I think kids find out about it, they slowly start developing the ability to understand that at the age of like 5 or 6, right? And then slowly by the age of 10, they sort of more and more understand it. Exodus crypto wallet. What the fuck are these advertisements? Oh, notifications from Brave. Wow, even the Brave browser's trying to sell me shit. No, during the funeral, he felt like crying once. The inside of his throat tightened painfully and his vision became blurry. But he stopped his tears immediately because Yona cried out first. Yona wasn't old enough to understand her mother's death yet. She probably became uneasy when she saw NieR about to cry. When NieR smiled at her, she immediately stopped her tears. She was already smiling when NieR wiped her tear-streaked face. He understood when he saw that smile. Now that both his father and mother were dead, he was the only one who could protect little Yona. Whew. 2. I think chapter 2. After a meager breakfast of the leftovers from the day before yesterday, NieR prepared to go out. Brother, can't I come as well? Though some herbs were seen throughout the village, the greatest number of herbs grew outside the eastern door in this season. Yona was brought there once. I want to help, she began to say, but was stopped by coughs. It was not a serious cough, and when NieR put his hand on her forehead, he didn't feel a fever coming up. However, not today. You're going to have a hard time if you get ill at night. Oh. A week ago, she had a fever and slept in. The fever had gone down now, and she regained her appetite. But a worrying fact remained. Her slight cough continued. In exchange, you can go out for a bit. Out of pity for the crestfallen Yona, he gave her this suggestion. As expected, Yona was back into bright spirits and said that she wanted to go on errands. Well then, 1 onion and 1 ginseng. Can I get the smallest ginseng? Nope. Didn't Popola tell you that ginseng is good for your body? Okay, I'll eat ginseng. Then both my fever and cough will get better, right? Instead of answering, NieR patted her head and put a bronze coin in her hand. He'd get payment for herb picking today, so he could afford to spare a bronze coin. The weather outside was good. Yona was overjoyed at her first outing in a long time, and tried to run out with basket in hand. However, her cough could have gotten worse if she ran around that much. NieR gripped Yona's hand tightly. Brother, the eastern door isn't this way. I'll walk you to the fountain. A gentle slope led from their house to the fountain, so they might have been tempted to run. However, traffic increased further down, and Yona probably wouldn't be so rash as to run. He thought that he might be a bit overprotective, but he couldn't bear to watch Yona suffer from a fever. Brother, I just heard a splash in the water that way. Was that a fish? The fish in the waterway don't jump out. He had heard that there were fish in the sea that flew, but the fish in the village's waterway were comparatively quiet. I want to go draw some water too. I know. Do not fucking let kids anywhere near a well or like... We had a fucking kid, and it's probably one of my distant relatives because, you know, in villages that's how shit works. But we had a kid that literally fell down a well. Luckily, there was a lot of fucking water in that well. That's all I gotta say. Because the kid fell in the fucking well. And, trust me, the kid was fucking traumatized afterwards. Because apparently it took like more than 30 minutes, close to an hour before anyone realized the kid was missing. After that, they fucking put covers on all the wells. The kid wanted some fucking water. It was like this old mechanism with a steel bucket. You put it on like a hook, and then you manually roll this like wooden thing. The kid apparently rolled the thing down, got the water, rolled it up, and wanted to grab the bucket. But being that the kid weighs fuck all, and the bucket's metal and full of water, and the kid's short, he sort of bent over too much, picked up the bucket, and pop, fell in. After that, they put covers on all the wells. So like only adults could basically lift off the metal cover. Apparently the kid was in there for like almost an hour screaming. And because the well is narrow and it's got like the little lid, you can't fucking hear it. And the well is like, I wouldn't even say in the center of anything. It's like out of the way. So by the time someone, by luck, was looking close to a well and heard the kid fucking screaming. Well, I don't think he was actually screaming at that point. I think he was screaming for the first 30 minutes. After that, he was so fucked. Do not let kids anywhere near a goddamn well. I mean, we make jokes in like scary movie, like, Sydney, there's another white girl stuck down a well, but that shit is terrifying. And yes, it was a white kid stuck down a well. Why is that even a thing? You racist bastards. It's a kid stuck down a well. Why does it matter that it's a white kid? Why? Because white kids are stupid? I can attest to that. I was fucking stupid too. I'm still stupid. And I'm still a kid. I'm just a big kid that's allowed to drive cars and shit. I'm a menace to society. I want to go back to being a kid. Well, not really. My childhood sucked, but you get my point. I want to go draw some water too. Not yet. A bucket of water is quite heavy, and it's dangerous. You could fall inside the waterways. The village's waterway provided water instrumental to everyday life. To keep the water from pollution, there were designated places for fishing, and the children were forbidden to play in the river. That's why NieR, Yona, and most villagers couldn't swim. If they fell into the waterway, they wouldn't be able to expect help from anybody. No one in the village knows how to fucking swim? Jesus. I almost drowned once. That was an experience. If only I could help you more. Yona, you're going on an errand now, aren't you? You're helping me alright. And great, I just realized that Hutchin hasn't swam in a while and her swimming's not that strong. And I did learn how to swim, but I only swam like once or twice in the past decade. I really should like brush up on my swimming. Because when you don't do something for like a decade, clearly your skills are gonna go down to shit. But then again, you know, Purple and Devil are just make another replicant. Eventually they heard a singing voice from the fountain backed by gentle sounds of, and dying underwater is my biggest fear. If it makes you feel any better, you'll run out of oxygen within 30 seconds from all the doggy paddling and the screaming, and then you'll pass out before your lungs fill with water. If that makes you feel any better. How was your day? Well, let's see. I went through a cocktail of emotions that I hadn't felt in a long time. How was yours? It's Devila. During sunny days, Devila sat in front of the fountain and sang to the plucking of her favorite instrument. Just like a library without Popola, NieR found a village without Devila's voice hard to imagine. Yona's hand slipped out of his grasp, but NieR didn't try to stop her. The sisters Devila and Popola were both a motherly and sisterly figure to Yona, and she admired them very much. Good morning, Yona. Has your fever gone down? Devila lightly nudged Yona's cheek and ruffled her hair. Yeah, right now? I am going on. Her words were cut off by a dry cough. Devila looked up at NieR, who had just arrived. Her fever receded 3 days ago, but she still has a cough. I see. It doesn't seem to be serious, though. It's not the kind of cough accompanied by phlegm, nor the kind that makes a whooshing sound whenever you breathe. It's a dry cough that seems almost unreliable. It seems almost unreliable. It's not that painful, but Yona has had this kind of cough before. That fact worried NieR. After you're done with your errand, go and see Popola for a bit. Yesterday night, she made some cough medicine for the old lady in the weapons shop. She should still have some left. Remembering the bitter taste of Popola's medicine, Yona frowned. Seeing her face, Devila said, if you drink your medicine like a good girl, I think Popola will read you a book as a reward. Really? She'll read me the story about the big tree? Yeah. I will see Popola, drink my medicine like a good girl, and have a book read to me. You still have an errand to run before that, right? Ah, right. I'm off, said Yona, and turned on her heels. Thanking a happily smiling Devila, NieR took off for the eastern door. After passing through his house again and running up the demanding slope, NieR saw the eastern door before his eyes. A familiar sleeping-looking guard, stretching. Good morning. Ah, morning. Take care if you're going outside. Apparently someone spotted some shades near the village. Shades? They're much, much more dangerous than beasts in the wilderness. They are black enemies that attack people without discrimination, and are the prime reason that villagers don't want to go out. Today's weather is fine, so they'll probably behave themselves as well. Shades are weak to sunlight. That's why they're rarely spotted during sunny days or midday. However, during cloudy days or evenings with weak sunlight, shadows or dark places within the bushes become dangerous. Wouldn't night, in that case, be a death sentence? Because there would be shadows kind of everywhere? That explains why the gates are so thick. They literally lock down the entire village at night. Fair enough. That answers my question. Night doesn't exist in this world, though. What? Wouldn't that fuck with the animals? Wouldn't that fuck with the animals big time? What do you mean night doesn't exist? Is that why the plants like grow overnight? There's no downtime? It's just endless photosynthesis? Are you serious? There's no night? I never realized that. I always figured that it was like the next day. Even the angel robot said in Automata. Well, a lot of things were said in Automata. The planet's rotation stopped, so one side is always sunny and the other side is nighttime. Wait, the planet's rotation... Whoa! Whoa! The planet's rotation stopped! How? What did they do? What happened to the sun? What happened to, like, gravitational pull? What happened to science and physics? This is becoming a lot more interesting than what's going on with the replicants. How is Earth even a thing anymore? That explains the goddamn desert. Kingdom of Darkness is in the dark side of the Earth and where a cord apparently resides. So there is literally half of the planet that's always nighttime. where plants cannot grow. Wow. That is terrifying. And I think the Queen Beast incident caused it. But I don't know. Wow. Wow. Okay. That's yeah, okay. I need to read more about this world. Clearly I haven't soaked in everything. Clearly. But to be fair, there's a lot to take in. It took me a while to accept the fact that the robot wore a short miniskirt and... yeah. Took me a while. Huh. Okay. Huh. Shades are weak to sunlight. That's why they're rarely spotted during sunny days or midday. However, during cloudy days or evening with weak sunlight, shadows or dark places within the bushes become dangerous. Shades are weak to sunlight and sunlight only. So no matter how bright, a torchlight won't have any effect on them. The reason for that is unknown. Much about the shades is unknown in the first place. Are they living beings? What do they eat? How do they multiply? How much reasoning do they have? Sorry, that came out of nowhere. Luckily, there have been no rumors of shades dwelling about the eastern door. But in their place were wild goats. I mean, I'll take the goats over shades. I don't know about you. But then again, goats do like charge you, and they could kill you. They're about as short-tempered as the sheep in the plains, and just as dangerous. If you don't take great care in approaching them, you'll either be gutted by their horns or kicked by their hooves. To avoid provoking the grass-eating goats, NieR began picking herbs at a great distance. Man, I remember being kicked in the mud by a goat. Hurts like a bitch. Taro said in an interview that Earth in NieR is semi-tidally locked, meaning that there is still a little bit of movement. But he said that during day, the sun is more tall in the sky, and during night, the sun changes to the horizon looking like dusk. It seems that Automata and NieR are in a twilight zone though. But at least, even if it is possible, Taro gave us an in-universe explanation about why the world is not cooked to death. Huh. Well, at least you can prepare against the goats beforehand. Yeah. Well, like most things, it's not going to mess with you unless it feels either threatened or it feels like you're intruding on its territory. Because, you know, goats are like that. They want mating rights as much as any male animal. Another interesting thing is that it seems that in Automata, the world is slowly flourishing again with mammals. Well, that's what happens when you remove most of humanity. Flora, fauna, and animals slowly start taking over. Because the cities start becoming a concrete jungle. I mean, let's face it, if humans disappeared for a month, what do you think would happen to our cities? Look what happened during lockdown, at the beginning of lockdown. Remember all those videos of the wild animals returning to cities and shit? Do you guys remember that? Animals just started intruding in the suburbs and cities. Like, hey, what's going on here? Where the cars at? Where the humans at? What's going on? You know what I mean? Like, it was unbelievable. And we saw what would happen if we just stay indoors. Imagine if all humans just disappear outright. Lights, you know, stop turning on after a while. And there's absolutely no one whatsoever as opposed to just inside. The amount of noise just disappears. And once animals come in, they're not going to run away during the day when humans occasionally run out. They'll actually start staying and things like that. It would be absolutely nuts. I'd say give it a month. You heard that people tamed sheep and goats a long time ago, but he doubted its genuineness. It's nigh impossible to make them behave without resorting to magic. At least that's what he believed. Well, like, intergenerational, you know, a bit like dogs and cats. But then again, have we ever really domesticated cats? I mean, they'd kill us if they had the chance. They just know they struggle to. Have you met some cats? They literally try to kill you. Speaking of which, you also heard there was once a time when nights were pitch black. It was hard to believe, but it was true. And shades probably didn't even exist back then. If the sun sank below the horizon and left the world in the dark, then the shades could easily do as they wished. Humans would probably die out in the blink of an eye. The prospect of complete darkness arriving every day is a bit scary, but it must have been much easier to live in a world without shades. But NieR stopped that line of thought. It's useless to think about how people lived before. It's not going to make their life any easier, and it's not going to make Yona any better. Having gathered a bag full of herbs and a whole basket of mushrooms, he looked down at his feet. He finished earlier than expected. There's still some time before evening arrives. The trees with Yona's favorite red fruit were a bit ahead. He had more than enough time to get them, but changed his mind and headed straight towards the eastern door. Let's go home. I want to be there for Yona today. Somehow, that's what he thought. Man, this... I'm being led in a false sense of security. I know Yoko Taro well enough to know that this is not going to have a happy ending. Even though I know they have plot armor and they cannot be killed, I am still worried for these two kids. Because at the end of the day, like it or not, they're still kids. And that scares me. I'm often the belief that children need to be protected. I get it, the world is a harsh place. But at the very least, protect the fucking kids. At least give them a little bit of a bubble while they're growing up so they experience some joy in their lives before they have to, you know, like work and get responsibilities. But Yona and NieR don't even get that. It's heartbreaking. It's absolutely heartbreaking. You were a bit late. Yona went back a few moments ago. Popola smiled calmly while accepting the bag of herbs. Popola's a babysitter of sorts. I'll be happy to read her one more book, but a letter came and it's fine. I'm sorry to pose on you when you're so busy with your own work. Popola's work includes many things, although her main job was to manage the library. She often took care of business related to villagers' lives and death along with her sister Devila. Devila and Popola helped deliver many babies that were born in the village around here, and would bury the dead as well. How much you want to bet burying and recycling are a bit, you know, I'm worried. Being the knowledgeable person she is, Popola was also relied on by many of the village elders around. Whenever trouble stirred in their own villages, they would often send for Popola's knowledge by way of mail or a messenger. Sus. Very sus. Yona's cough is slightly different from her usual ones, but it makes sense. A society that's not especially technologically advanced, that does not have readily available information, and you have a woman that's managing the library that has knowledge, that has science, that has history, she would be invaluable to the village. I mean, just take a look at the technology in the village. They have a water wheel, and what else? Think about the technology for a second. They still use lamps and candles. They live off the land, they have crops, they have animals. The architecture is mostly stone and mortar. Well, I can only assume that it's mortar, but you get what I mean, right? It's like the mixture of the sand and the mud and the water, which they used to use on the old buildings, and the heavy stones and masonry, which, you know, it's not just going to topple over when the next piece of wind comes through, and I don't think there's a lot of wind. It's still very ancient technology. Well, ancient relative to to us. Let's face it, that's not ancient. That's less than 1,000 years ago. That's less than 1,000 years ago, fam. How many thousands of years do you think humans were here? Ancient would be fucking Flint and Tinder using a goddamn rock to cut open animals or something, man. I don't know about you, but like candles and bricks and mortar and doors and candles and books is fairly new. Well, not books. That's been around for a while, but you get what I mean. Ancient. What, you think people live on farms or in some sort of like bubble stuck in time. Fab, you show up, you've grown in the city, boy. You're a city boy, I can see it now. Anyone that has a chicken is ancient. Where do eggs come from? I don't know, the egg factory. Wow. Wow. You fucking city boy. Wow. Innocent in the ways of the world. Where does milk come from? You know, the milk factory. It's like, oh, okay. Oh, man. Oh, man. A bit of laughter is good. A bit of laughter is good. It's really going to refresh us with the trauma that is going to come. Yona's cough is slightly different from her usual ones, so my fears were valid, but if Popola noticed it, then he'd be alright. Conflicting feelings of anxiety and relief stirred within NieR. That's why I didn't let her drink the medicine. It'd be better to wait and see. Then I'll have to tuck her in earlier. Maybe it'd be better to have dinner earlier as well. Keep her bed warm. Let her stay in bed for tomorrow. While NieR worked out plans in his head, Popola laughed lightly. With all the worrying you do, you'll end up on the bed yourself. But it's alright, you're doing fine. Relief washed over him at hearing Popola's comment. Us siblings were indebted to these sisters more than anyone else in the village, he thought. After leaving the library, he delivered the mushrooms and took a pumpkin home. He'll make a boiled sweet pumpkin for dinner. Surely Yona will be happy. A thought that just hit my mind really quickly is how important empathy is for us as a species to function. Think about it. If people didn't have empathy, if we didn't feel sympathy, we would have no incentive to help people. Now, in today's day and age, empathy and sympathy are sometimes seen as an inconvenience because everyone is so inwardly focused and, you know, everyone wants the latest iPhone and whatnot. But back thousands of years ago when we lived in communities, in villages, in tribes, you know, when we were surrounded by harsh terrain, land, predators, animals, if someone was to get sick, or if someone was to die, and the tribe or the village wouldn't, you know, pick up the slack and look after the young ones or protect the weak or the injured or the one that couldn't hunt or work the land, they would die. And in turn, we as a species wouldn't, you know, have populated the planet the way we did. Let's face it, we only got where we are today not only by, you know, screwing people and having people like Genghis Khan, but, and I make that joke, he killed more people than he screwed, but anyway, it's also by the empathy and the sympathy, because we relied on one another. That's what our empathy and sympathy is. That's why people can understand, you know, the emotions of someone in pain or suffering or begging, despite not speaking the same language. It's what we relied on many thousand years ago. That's what's being displayed here. Without people like Popo, and I get it, they're androids, but without the other people in the village that are clearly showing kindness to NieR and Yona, they'd basically be fucked. I mean, it wouldn't be very difficult for a random person to just literally kick in the door and kill the kids or kick them out. But what's stopping them from doing that? The fact that the rest of the villagers would probably, you know, grab their pitchforks and burn the person, right? So in some sense, the societal empathy and sympathy is what kept these societies together. And this is what created the norms that we live in today. You know, the whole morals and ethics code from which, you know, some laws are derived from. But you get what I mean, right? Tried to say that no one can survive fully alone. They could for a while, but no one is strong forever. People age, people get injured, people could get food poisoning by eating the wrong mushroom, and what then? What happens when the season changes? Or it gets cold, or it gets warm, or a bear finds your hut in the middle of the woods? Sure, you can survive alone for a little while, but not forever. And even if you survive alone and die alone and, you know, your last day you've worked the land all by yourself, What then? If you didn't have offspring, your line ends right there. You know, in order for the human race to populate the Earth the way that it did, it requires more than that. It requires a society, it requires a community, it requires somewhat of a family unit, which is a support network. I mean, think about it. A family unit is nothing more than a support network. That's how it works in many countries. You have people that are kids, they grow up, they look after their parents and their grandparents, and eventually they have kids and grandkids who eventually in turn look after their parents and grandparents. I mean, if you look at many European countries, and I can only assume in other societies around the world, when one of the grandparents passes away, whether it's the grandfather or the grandmother, the surviving one typically moves in with like the eldest. And they end up pretty much being a caretaker for the kids, you know, the grandkids. They're integrated into the family unit, and they basically stay a part of the family unit until they pass away. It's a way of, you know, the world. It's the norm. Whereas here in the West, we have this very convenient place we call retirement villages, where we just, you know, drop off our elderly and pretend they don't exist until they pass away, and we start chasing inheritance. Ever noticed that? That's a lot colder, don't you think? It's a lot more clinical. They can no longer work, so we just, you know, out of sight, out of mind, you know? A little bit like how veterans are treated, and a little bit how people with, you know, disabilities are treated. Don't you think it's sad? I mean, we have social security, we have, you know, income protection and things like that, but it's the bare minimum. Imagine an old person living alone on social welfare. Okay, they might have, you know, a place to live and electricity in a suburb that's probably crime infested because police don't give a shit about it. But and I'll use this as an example, how's the poor old lady supposed to go to the store? Oh, she can drive. Oh, okay. What if she can't afford a car? Oh, someone can do it for her. Really? Who? What happens when the light bulb, you know, eventually runs out? And yeah, you're going to tell me there's LED light bulbs that last 12 years, but bear with me on this one. Light bulbs didn't last 12 years back in the day. And they were hot, and they would run out, and they would break. And you'd have to get a fucking step ladder, you know? What would happen? What the fuck would happen? I worked as a buyer's agent, and I did a little bit of time in real estate. And I worked in the eastern suburbs here in Sydney. It's waterside, it's expensive, and the median apartment price is over $2 million. Over $2 million. Well, like if you're buying a 1-bedroom, 50 square meter apartment, 1 bedroom, sometimes an integrated bathroom, laundry. Why do I have a step ladder? Because like these wardrobes are tall, and on top of the wardrobes, I put things in boxes so the place is nice and neat. So up here, I have like the suitcases and like the PlayStation box and like odd computer parts. Yeah, I'm a little bit of a handyman. Someone's got to do it. Anyways, so I worked in the eastern suburbs, and the median house price is fucking expensive. Like $1 million for a 1-bedroom apartment if you're lucky. Some of these places have harbor views. They see the harbor bridge and the fucking opera house. We're talking bank. We're talking some of the houses here are $15 million. You know, like exorbitantly rich. Anyways, I was working there, and there was basically like, you know, I was helping them prep apartments for viewings and like sellings and auctions. And, you know, being the inquisitive person that I am, we were like cleaning out this apartment which had this fucking old carpet that stank. You know, like 20-year-old carpet, aged carpet, it has a smell. And you know, walls with the old wallpaper that no longer does anymore. Now we just paint the walls. But you know the old school wallpapers with the stink? And occasionally you would have like the woolly material on the walls that's really old. And especially if someone was a smoker, it would literally smell of smoke. Anyway, it was one of these like really old apartments, and we're like moving out this old wooden furniture and whatnot. And you know, me being inquisitive, I mean, I'm working there, I want to learn. I'm like, so like, who's selling this? And it's like, it's like, it's a deceased estate. And that's a nice way of saying someone died and, you know, the kids are squabbling over the inheritance. And so it needs to be sold because the remaining kids, you know, can't split it amongst themselves. So they sell it and they divide up the money. And that's how it usually is. I'm like, so who gets this? And it's like, well, and I was like, well, why aren't the, like, you know, kids or whatever doing this? And it was a female real estate agent, and she's like, an old lady lived here. She passed away, and she didn't have any relatives. She didn't have any friends, and she didn't have a will. So the place is being sold, and the money goes to the government. And I'm just sort of sitting there going, the building has like over 100 apartments. There's several hundred people living in the building. And the lady didn't have a will. Now, I get that some people don't have a will and whatnot, but like, you know, typically these old timers get attached to someone, and, you know, a lot of young people start dating old people and they, you know, inherit a big amount. I mean, it's a very popular craze nowadays, especially with sugar babies. But looking at the state of the place, you could kind of see why it was so neglected, because let's face it, she couldn't grab the things on top of the bookshelves, and eventually the scope and her world became smaller and smaller. And it's sad that in the middle of a densely populated city in Sydney, where there's several million people, in a very expensive area where there's hundreds of people in the building, people are well off, there's this old lady living in an apartment by herself with no one, that dies and no one noticed. Mind you, you know when they noticed? When there was a smell and someone next door reported a smell and the building manager sent out someone to investigate, and they knocked and they found out that the woman died and was partially decomposed. Out of sight, out of mind. Now mind you, she could have gone to a nursing home. You know, she could have like sold or paid someone to manage her property and pay the exorbitant fee that is a nursing home, but maybe the old lady wanted to live out her days in her own home. No family at all? Nah, no family. She didn't have kids. And from what I understand, no relatives or anything like that. Or maybe, I don't know, she moved to a different city or something, you know what I mean? Everyone has their circumstances. But it was a real eye-opening experience to see that in a world where we're so connected, there are people isolated. So to loop it back to this whole society, sympathy, empathy, and why that helped us get to where we are as a species, it is still a key component today. And I feel that for a lot of people, particularly in our generation, it's biting them. And in the generation before us. Because we live in such a bubble and such a rat race where we believe that chasing things is going to provide us with fulfillment and security. And then we find out in our later years, when our bodies start breaking down, becoming slower, we realize very fucking quickly that the latest iPhone or telephone or whatever the fuck isn't the most important thing in the world. And we put our eggs in the vanity basket. And we don't have friends like we think we do. We don't have deep relationships as bonds and as we think we do. And when we do need help, and eventually we muster up the courage to actually ask for it, because for some reason asking for help seems to be a weakness in the West, no one actually wants to help us. And we don't actually have real friends. We don't have real relationships. We don't have real families. And that would probably explain the situation that we're currently seeing in Western countries of, you know, a disenfranchised youth, easy to manipulate by politicians and influencers, and old people relying on medication and depressants and drugs and alcohol, and the skyrocketing suicide rate and the mental health crisis and the hospital crisis and all these other things. Wouldn't it be nuts if everyone had someone they could actually talk to? That could somewhat empathize with the challenges that they're facing, and they wouldn't feel crippling loneliness? I have a feeling that depression would be a lot less common. And a lot of other issues that we have in society would disappear overnight. But that's just my theory. I'm making you depressed. I apologize. That's where my mind went to when I read a couple of these sentences. This story's a kicker. How about that story of Kaine and her grandmother? Fucking strikes close to that, doesn't it? And the mean kids throwing rocks. Because the little girl's different. Not so different from how kids get bullied because they're different, isn't it? I mean, I got beat up as a kid because I was from Yugoslavia and I was a white kid in an area dominated by other migrants from other surrounding countries. I mean, the kids didn't really understand it, but they understood different kid bad, right? Society's fucked. But it's no different to how animals always ostracize and pick on the different people. Yeah, well, I got bullied for being black. It's the same fucking shit. It's the same fucking shit. Kid being bullied for the color of his skin. Kid being bullied for the color of his hair or her hair. Kid being bullied for gender. Kid being bullied because he likes the color green instead of the color blue. Kid being bullied because he likes a guy instead of liking a girl. Same shit. Kid being bullied for the type of sports team he or she supports. Kid being bullied for not liking a certain type of food. Kid being bullied for not living in a certain postcode. Kid being bullied for not having the latest iPhone. Kid being bullied for not wearing a certain brand. Kid being bullied for not thinking a certain thing. Kid being bullied for not having a certain taste in music. Kid being bullied for not thinking the same thing as the other people in the social group. Funny how they all have a lot in common. But hey, let's not compare racism to thought crimes, even though it stems from the same idea. I mean, fuck. Meanwhile, the blessing in disguise is that on the internet, where a lot of people, well, up until now, you know, forums and whatnot, were reading text. I don't know about you, but I struggle to distinguish race, color, language, ideology, religion, music taste, and all these other things when I'm reading someone's text post. Funny. And so all these communities are forming on a digital platform based on ideas and beliefs rather than race, language, appearance, and all these other factors. Let's call them attributes. So we're forming our own communities on a digital platform with like-minded individuals, and realizing very quickly that the whole superiority complex that many people have based on color, language, socioeconomic background, and all this other crap doesn't mean shit. Imagine if we were actually being monitored by interterrestrial life and they're monitoring us and they have the technology to monitor us and we wonder why we haven't encountered terrestrial life, extraterrestrial life, I have to ask, if another life form was to objectively look at our species, what would they see? And after seeing that, how would they respond? I don't know about you, but I don't think they would open their doors to the intergalactic community to a species that behaves the way we do. Particularly with the technology that we have. Just saying. I mean, look at what we do with technology. We use it to exploit and enslave people that don't have it. So, I don't know why humans keep poking around for extraterrestrial life. Personally, I wouldn't. For multiple factors. Then again, kind of worked for us in Mass Effect. We got lucky in Mass Effect that there were a few slavs left. The slavs are the only thing keeping us alive in Mass Effect. If it wasn't for the slavs, we'd be fucked in Mass Effect. And you know it as well as I do. Gun-toting, cocaine-sniffing slavs. Without the slavs, we'd be fucked. Alright, let's go back to it. That's what I appreciate about these stories. They inspire a lot of thought. And you're never the same person after reading them or experiencing them. That's the sign of a good story. It changes your view of the world and it develops you in some way or another. It affects you. It changes you. That's a good story. That's a good story. With those thoughts occupying his mind, NieR looked up at the second floor window. However, Yona was nowhere to be seen. Usually, by the time NieR came back, she'd have attached herself to the window, looking out. He had a bad feeling about this. Yona, kicking open the door, he rushed into his house. Brother! I'm sorry, Metal Gear Solid just took over for a minute. Holding a chick in her hand, Yona looked up at NieR with a blank face. Overcome with relief, NieR almost sat down on the spot. Yona wasn't on the second floor because she was looking after the chick. What is it? Nothing. Just a few moments ago... Sorry, give me a sec. Where was I? Ah, yes. Brother! Holding a chick in her hands, Yona looked up at NieR with a blank face. Overcome with relief, NieR almost sat down on the spot. Yona wasn't on the second floor because she was looking after the chick. What is it? Nothing. Just a few moments ago, images of Yona fainting or stumbling from painful coughs tormented his mind. Now he just laughed at the absurdity of it all. He ate a lot. After patting the chick happily, she put the chick back in its cage. He took great care in handling it, as if dealing with a broken object. Poplar said that I don't need to drink the cough medicine. Instead, I should sleep early in a warm bed after that. That's how Yona always was. Following NieR around after he came home, she talked about what she did during the day at great lengths, trying to make up for the time she spent apart. Relieved, NieR put down his bag, listening to Yona talk behind him. He lit a fire in the kitchen. Her words stopped abruptly, accompanied by a dry cough. It got worse after a few moments. You talk too much, Yona. Don't push yourself too hard. Stay quiet for a bit. The moment NieR tried to turn around, he heard a retching sound. It seems like she coughed too much and ended up throwing up. He immediately tried to rush to her side, but was frozen in place. Yona's two hands covering her mouth were stained black. The oppressive stench was distinctly different from that of vomit. He later realized that it was the stench of blood. Well, there's the black and red. FYI, the darker the blood, the more arterial it is. Internal organs are basically a very dark red, almost black. That ain't good. That ain't good. Like, if you cut yourself and you have, like, red blood, I mean, it's not good, but it's not the worst. Whereas, if you were to, you know, cut a vital organ, like maybe a liver or a stomach, you're looking at a lot darker color. God fucking damn it. Oh no, I did not want to read this. Oh god. God damn it. Brother, it hurts. Yona looked like she was about to cry. She tried to stand up, but started coughing again. Black puddles of blood slipped between her fingertips and splashed onto the floor. They looked like they had a life on their own. An enormous term floated in his mind. The so-called Black Reaper. The Black Scrawl virus. Why you do this? I didn't come here for depression. Oh, god damn it. I need my black coffee. The bitterness, take me away from this. This is so unfair. So, OG Yona, fucked. World goes to shit, Replicant Yona, fucked. I'm sorry, Yoko, but what do you have it in for this poor girl? Oh, sorry, Kaine didn't get it much better either. Fucked. Absolutely fucked. Both OG Kaine and Replicant Kaine both got pretty much fucked. Oh wait, I'm sorry. Emil also got pretty fucked. Emil's sister, fucked. All the other kids in the story, fucked. I'm sorry, but I do not want to be a child in a Yoko Taro story. Because children with Yoko Taro get fucked. Speaking of which, does Yoko Taro have kids? Because he fucking shouldn't. There should be an international ban on Yoko Taro having anything to do with children. Because this is fucked. Please, find me a child in any of the NieR franchise that isn't traumatized. I'll wait right here. Yura Tyran. Is he messed up too? Probably not. I mean, you don't become messed up like that without, you know, some traumatic experiences. Tyran was probably raped by a wild goat or something. Anyways. Back to our regularly scheduled depression session. We can all have ice cream and hot cocoa at the end of it. Anyways, she should be okay for now. I'm sorry, how the fuck did that come out of nowhere? Wait, chapter 4, it's a different chapter. His replicant is gone and he started possessing people. I mean, yeah. Oh man. This is heavy, Doc. Anyway, she should be okay for now. Popula caught NieR's eye and mentioned for them to leave the room. Devila, who stayed by Yona's side, nodded. He can't quite remember what happened after that. He called Yona saying that her back hurts. Herself carrying her outside and meeting Devila, who told them to go back. When he said back to himself, Popula had already given Yona some medicine, and Devila was helping him clean up the blood-stained bed. No, he really didn't do anything. Devila and Popula were the ones that took over. When his father died, he still had his mother. When she died, he had Yona. But what if Yona died? He felt himself being drawn into a black hole and stopped thinking further. Why? Why would Yona... Coming down the stairs, he faced Popola alone and couldn't stop himself asking. She's still so young. Is it because I didn't take good care of her? Did she have bad food? No, it's not because of you nor the food. The black scroll is simply that kind of disease. Even Popola couldn't figure out the cause for the much feared black scroll. It's not something transferred from animals to humans, nor a genetic disease transferred between parent and child. There's no relationship between living or health habits. A healthy person could easily get sick as well. Apparently the symptoms start out as a cough and fever. That's why it's so easily confused with a normal flu. Did you know this? Maybe even Devila knew. After all, she told Yona to go to Popola after hearing her coughs, and Popola didn't give her any medicine, but told him to wait and see. Maybe they knew the usual medicine won't take effect. I hope that I was wrong, but we both saw victims of the black scroll before, so... Popola's voice faded out to a whisper, and she cast her eyes downward. What will become of Yona? He didn't ask how much time she had. NieR knew that the black scroll is incurable and will inevitably lead to death. Everyone feared this disease, so it's natural for everyone to have a passing knowledge of it. It differs from person to person, but the fever, the cough, and the pain will continue. Yona said her back hurts, but the pain actually comes from her bone. Some people have leg pains, some have arm pains. As the disease progresses, the pain will spread throughout the body. Eventually, the victim will be rendered motionless and can only lie down and suffer. Also, coughing up blood will weaken their body significantly and maybe speed up the symptoms. When the black letters show up on their bodies, they won't have much longer to live. Well, that was the moment we played the game. Is there anything I can do? He knew that it was a foolish question. He knew, but he couldn't stop himself from asking. If you give her some medicine, it could lessen her pains at least. But there's nothing that you can do to completely eradicate the disease. You could stop the pain at least then, right? He wouldn't want Yona to suffer more than she has to. The least he could do was lessen her pain, but Popola shook her head slightly. The medicine that could ease the pain of the black scroll has to be obtained from somewhere else. It's not like your standard cough or fever medicine, where all the materials can be found around the village. In other words, it was expensive medicine. NieR was the one who always picked up herbs for cough and fever medicines, so he simply got them from Popola whenever he needed them. However, it's not that simple with the medicine Alright, there's a slight little thing if someone can edit the wiki. It's not that simple with medicine that has be gotten elsewhere. That has to be gotten elsewhere. If anyone can actually modify the wiki, I'm going to copy and paste this for you. No pressure. But, like, if you can, go for it. Still, it's for Yona. Popola looked upon him sadly and spoke no more. Ah! I hate that we know how it ends, but it still hurts. In this story, NieR is 15 and takes us to pay for the game itself. It still hurts. We know she gets it. We know that she's weak. We know that she's bedridden. We've heard the cough. But it still fucking hurts. It probably hurts even more so because we've heard her coughing. We've seen her in bed. And every single fucking time we go back to that house, it hurts. Ow, sorry. He'll do anything for Yona. His feelings as a brother were completely truthful. But reality simply wasn't that nice. It's not like he didn't have savings. After his mother's death, he found a few of his father's letters along with a certain amount of money carefully kept. NieR didn't use them, wanting to save them for times of need. His mother probably thought the same thing and stored them. The amount isn't anything to be proud of, but it's reassuring nonetheless to know that he has financial backup for emergencies. That's why when he heard the expensive price of the medicine, he thought he could do something about it. The medicine worked very well. Yona still coughed and had light fevers, but the cough caused by the black scroll were never very serious to begin with, compared to the cough that made Yona lose sleep whenever the seasons changed. This was nothing, as long as the pain was lessened, so is the burden on her body. But here comes the problem. She had to keep drinking the same medicine. If she stops, the pain returned full force. That's why he had to keep spending money to get a continuous supply of medicine for Yona. His savings quickly saw their bottom. Brother, you going already? Yona sleepily got up while rubbing her eyes. NieR tried to move around without making a sound, but Yona probably sensed his presence and woke up. I'm picking some fern today, so I have to go out early. You can still sleep, Yona. Are you going to the place with scary sheep? Yona's expression darkened. Fern grew on the northern plains, home to not only shades, but also a plethora of wild sheep. Sorry, I'm sick, so you have to. Don't worry. Speaking over her words, NieR smiled at her. Your brother won't lose to pesky sheep. I got some of their meat last year, didn't I? He didn't exactly lie to reassure Yona. He was stronger than he was last year, and became faster as well. As long as he had a proper weapon, he could probably hunt down sheep. Still, getting his hands on a proper weapon is going to prove a difficult task. Man. He did everything to lessen her pain. He didn't even get a proper weapon. Man. Well, I'm off then. Take care. Yona tried to wave at him, but was once again stopped by her coughs. Before he headed into the plains, he went to the south gate. More than half of the villagers were asleep at this hour, and no one could be seen at the shops or the main street. Only his lone footsteps resounded throughout the quiet street. Soon, he heard the sound of the water wheel turning and the squawking of hens. He was right in thinking that the hen keeper's wife was gathering the eggs. Good morning. NieR called out to her at a distance in fear of stepping onto any hidden eggs in the grass. Good morning, NieR. Up early today, huh? If there's anything I can do. Even one extra job would count towards getting enough money for Yona's medicine. That's how he got into the habit of asking villagers for a job. I'm sorry, but we have enough helpers right now. There's nothing I can ask of you. The hen keeper's wife said apologetically. In the first place, the couple only kept a number of chickens that they could deal with. Grass and bugs couldn't feed that many chicks. If they increased in numbers, the couple would have to buy food specifically for them. They weren't prosperous enough to afford that. Oh, if something ever comes up in Seafront, please pick up a few seashells along the way. Seashells? Apparently the hens lay eggs better if you feed them crushed seashells. I'll be sure to pick some up if I go there, but not now. Of course, I'm not in a rush. Just do it whenever you want. Seafront is too far for just one job, and he didn't really like that place. He went there just once, but for him, that place had nothing but bad memories. Picking up his pace, he once again went through the street full of shops and headed towards the northern gate. No sign of the villagers yet. There were usually 2 guards at the northern gate, but only one was present. as was his habit. NieR asked the guard for jobs, but the guard just shook his head. I'll ask everyone who passes by for jobs, so come by again sometime. Thank you, but don't expect much. So this is why the gate guys have all those jobs for us, because they're actually kind of like, you know, if you have a job, you just tell the gate guy because that's like the common passing place, right? And they probably get like a small cut or something. Those damn fragile items. How many of those have we broken? I'm surprised we even get paid. We broke like a dozen. I was like, well, lucky I have a spare. It's like, yeah. Damn it. His blunt statement was quite understandable. Everyone in the village is gentle, but at the same time they're poor. In another city, the wheat and fish in this village may be treated as chicken feed and lures, but to this village, they're precious sources of food. Wow. Wow. That says it all, doesn't it? Food wasn't the only thing they were lacking, and remember that NieR was eating not yesterday's leftovers, but the day before yesterday's leftovers for breakfast. So he's already prioritizing Yona. On top of that, the quality of food and the nutrition from it is already not considered high by the sounds of things. Plus, your NieR's village is kind of poor. That's why you don't get much money in the game for the village quests. That is clever. That is clever, because if you got the same amount of money at the beginning as you did later on, it'd kind of be broken. Whereas villages like Facade seem to have a lot of wealth, but they don't have a lot of items, so everything is considered expensive. Whereas our village that's poor has, like, you know, eggs and plants and vegetables, but it doesn't have a lot of money. Whereas places like Seafront have a vast amount of items that are, you know, relatively priced because they have access to the sea and trade. Whereas the Airy doesn't really have jack shit because it's in the middle of nowhere. That's very cleverly designed. I didn't really pay much attention to it initially, but I have to tip my proverbial hat to the thinking that went into that. Someone actually thought about this. Son of a bitch. Son of a bitch. Well played, motherfucker. There's also a severe shortage of workforce. No one here had enough money to actually hire people. Even the comparatively rich people are stretching themselves thin just by paying for tailoring. Except the storekeepers and guards. All adult males had to go outside for work. NieR's father was one among them. That's why the jobs the village gave to NieR were closer to charity. They were going out of their way to think of jobs that they could make NieR do in exchange for food or money. NieR knew that it'd be hard to get money in this village. However, NieR is only 15, not old enough to be hired in other cities. He really wanted to grow up quicker. He wanted to earn enough money. If this keeps up, he might not even have enough for tomorrow's food, much less for Yuna's medicine. Oh god fucking damn it! Taro, he's pretty clever. He might be odd here and there, but he's pretty clever for some things like the side quests for the villages and towns. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Taro is definitely, you know, but madness and genius go hand in hand. I mean, let's think of Galileo. They thought the guy was a basket case. Let's look at Nikola Tesla. They thought he was crazy. I mean, they're just ahead of their time. I mean, the sheep that says that the farmer and the dog are working together is considered crazy. You know? He returned to the village after half a day spent picking up ferns in the plains. True to his word, the guard called out to people who passed by the northern gate, but no one needed NieR's help. He went to talk with Devila, since she sang at the bar. She knew the ins and outs of the village quite well, just like how people went to Popola for her knowledge. They went to Devila for someone to listen to their complaints and troubles. She's a counselor, or a fitness trainer, because, you know, a lot of people that go for fitness training don't actually go for the training, they go for, like, the counseling. They just talk about their problems. Because it's cheaper than a counselor or a therapist. Joke's on them. They should have just gone to the car wash. Or, you know, a hooker. I mean, 20 bucks is 20 bucks. Someone's going to listen to your problems and wash your car. That is a bad joke. I'll do anything for 20 bucks. Yeah, wash my car and listen to my problems. Joke's on you, I got my car washed. Hey. Nah, I didn't. I washed my car myself. She should know if anyone wanted help. However, even Devila shook her head today. Hey NieR, there's this old lady looking for a house. Her son is coming back with a wife or something. Devila, you mean? If you sell your house, you should be able to get by for the moment. There are a few spare rooms in the library, so there's plenty of space for you two to sleep in. He never thought about selling his house. It's an old and small house, so he didn't know how much it'd sell for, but it could cover for Yona's medicine. At least he didn't have to worry about not being able to buy her medicine anymore. Are you going to think about it? He knew that he should nod. There are barely any savings left. Selling his house and asking Popola to let them into one of her library rooms is the best choice. His brain understood that, but he couldn't bring himself to nod. The house must have been a special place to Yona, who spent most of her life at home due to her weak body. It's also the last thing connecting them to their mother. He sold all of his mother's clothing and personal belongings to cover medicine costs. Nothing is left to remind them of her, except for the house itself. There's no way he could let go of that. Actually, NieR couldn't finish the sentence and merely cast his eyes downwards, but Devila understood. I see. I'm sorry. You told me this for my sake. No worries, I kinda expected an answer from you anyway. I should be the one apologizing. Pushing open the heavy doors, NieR left the bar. This was in the bar. Jesus. No jobs for today, and he still had no idea what to do for tomorrow. That line of thought depressed NieR. Right, and she's the one that always gets us work from the... Wow. And she's also curating the jobs, ensuring that the ones she sends him on aren't extremely dangerous. Fragile deliveries, gathering plants, little shits and giggles, and keeping him away from the dangerous work. Wow. This adds a lot of weight to the Devila and Popola fight. They even said it themselves, they wanted to push it out for another century or so. And they even apologized, like, we're really sorry. God damn it, Devila and Popola. You should have bloody had the talk no jutsu before the first fight. Why did you have that first goddamn fight and then you threw a book at him and then you jumped into the second fight? Couldn't you talk no jutsu? Damn it, Devila and Popola. You didn't exactly play that the best way you could have. Just saying. And considering the fact that you were planning to use Luis against OG NieR Shadow Lord in case he doesn't go with the plan, and NieR Replicant took out Luis, you should have known that he could probably overpower you. Like, that was... Why did you? If only they told him about that before he went on the shadow murdering rampage. See, this is one of those circumstances where, you know, preventing the harsh reality only makes things worse. Yeah, plus there's a short story in Grimoire called Mermaid, so it kind of gives more context to the Mermaid episode. I will definitely want to read that. I want these short stories. They're God damn it. They're bloody good. They should have been included in version 1.22. I mean, come on. His mood only worsened on the way home when he saw a young mother pulling her children away, telling them not to go there. He was aware that the mothers in the village forbade their children from playing near his house. They feared that their children will be infected with Yona's black scroll. Okay, I can understand that. It hurts like a bitch to him, but I can kind of understand that. Of course, everyone in the village knew the black scroll wasn't contagious. That's why they never went out of their way to avoid NieR and interacted with him as they normally would. Okay, that is... yeah. However, the villagers were still nervous. What if the black scroll is actually contagious, but only rarely so? Even if most people don't get infected, maybe some people do get infected. As long as they remain in the dark about its cause, nothing could be set in stone. Yeah, we typically fear what we don't understand. Which is why governments at times of emergency like to pretend like they understand what's going on, even though they have absolutely no idea, because a panicking population causes more problems than the actual thing itself. You know, like how they handled COVID and was saying certain things that simply weren't true. Nice work. Well, little money he had went into Yona's medicine. He wanted to get by without buying food, and it should be possible with the fields his mother made when she was alive. Pulling out the wild grass and digging through the soil, he planted the small number of seeds he had gotten. Please let me make it. NieR prayed in his heart while running. He jumped over the broken fence with all his might, but immediately sank down to his knees at the side of his garden. The sprouts that had just begun to grow leaves were all withered. He heard that it's not easy to grow plants on this piece of ground, but he never thought that everything would wither simply because he forgot to water them once. I'm telling you, he will never fucking forget this lesson. This builds on that discussion we had yesterday in Invincible episode 4 and 5, when I said kids need to be, well, it's not a kid, but you get what I mean. They need to be able to make a mistake and learn from it because they'll never forget. You could tell someone that if you don't water the plants, even once, they will die. And then they'll be like, yeah, I understand. But when they actually die, and it stings, and you have to go through it all over again, you will never forget. Like telling a kid, do not touch the iron, it is hot. Do not touch the pan, it is hot. You know, do not drink the water that's straight out of the boiling kettle or whatever. It is hot. Yeah. And then you drink it and I burnt my tongue. You're never gonna fucking forget that, you know? Like, don't touch the knife on the sharp end. Oh shit, I cut myself. Hate to say it, but kids gotta burn themselves and cut themselves a little bit to learn the importance of not fucking around with kitchen utensils. Better for it to happen while you're around in a controlled environment rather than like that kid that dropped something in the sink, you know, with the spinning blades, put his hand in there and lost his hand. Get what I mean? I posted the mermaid episode. Thank you. Try to post them, like, the important ones, and we'll try to curate them as we go along. Growing a lunar tear or the pink moonflower's seed quest, Life in the Sands, is not a fun quest, but yeah, it's easy to forget. Oh man, remember how many times we did it? And remember how, like, I forgot that 1 week to pick up the thing? Like, we played the game on Saturday. I watered it, put it down. I didn't touch it Sunday. I realized Monday night that I forgot. I booted up the game, and the flowers had already withered, but there were no seeds. And I lost most of, like, my, I think it was peach or pink or whatever it was. And luckily I had, like, 1 left. And I could, from that 1, cultivate the rest. Yeah. Luckily now we got lunar tears. But you get what I mean. Yeah. Oh, I'm sounding too much like an old man now. Speaking about how to educate the youth and help flourish experience in a safe environment. What am I? Who am I? I must be a replicant of some sort. I must be possessed with a black scroll or something. You're the boomer now. Hey! Where's my home, motherfucker? Them boomers been buying houses for cheap. You used to be able to buy a house, work in 2-3 years. You used to be able to have a house, afford 2 cars, and a stay-at-home wife and 2.5 kids on your own full-time salary. I don't know about you, but that sounds pretty fucking good. They used to get paid an average of like $30,000, $40,000 a year. A brand new Mustang would cost you like $6 grand. I don't know about you, but that seems pretty nice. A house was like 100 grand. Now the salary isn't even double, but the bloody car costs more than that house. I don't know about yous, but boomers had it pretty fucking good. I don't see a Bugatti or BMW. See, here's the thing that gets me with boomers. If you grew up at a time where that's how much you were getting paid, and that's how much things cost, why are there people in the boomer generation that don't have much? That's the real question. If they were working, like there are some people that couldn't work, but the ones that were working and earning, what the fuck happened? Did you not even, like, end up buying your own place? Like, what did you think? The party was gonna last forever? Where's the responsibility? Now that he thought about it, his mother was ridiculously uptight about watering. Although she let NieR take care of the chickens, she forbade him to touch the fields. Even his mother had plenty plants die on her before the harvest. In the end, it was impossible for 2 children to live in this poor village alone. Maybe he really has to sell his house. There was nothing in his house that could trade for money. Just as he believed himself to be on the brink of despair, a certain idea entered his mind. There's still something he could sell. Yes, one last thing. He tried to stand up, but he failed. It felt like a heavy weight was placed on him. He has to get home quickly. Make food for Yona, prepare for tomorrow. He thought tons and tons of things he had to do. But still, NieR could not move. Man. Did the music just choose itself? It's on autoplay, but this is Shadow Lord's Castle. I don't know which version, but OG? I think it's OG. Good music though. Chilling. Chilling. Absolutely chilling. I would read to this, but there's only one problem. There's actual lyrics. And it takes a little bit of... If there's one without it. No, no, por favor, señor, no, 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 no. No! 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 This is not only Emil's sacrifice, it's also the music Fira dies to. A bunch of people died to this fucking track, including loyal Cerberus. There is so much sadness in this fucking track. And the King of Thingo also dies to this track. There is so much death associated with this fucking music. No, I have not. But without context, the music wouldn't mean much to me anyway. So much sacrifice, you say? Ah! German version, Japanese version, not in-game. Nani? Oh god. I'm getting chills, man. Oof. Oh. This is a music box. And that is not musical notes, but rather heartstrings. This is the piano version you mentioned. Oh yeah, I know this song. Let's stick to the OGs. Let's not do YouTube and remixes. It might sort of, you know, looping becomes a thing and all that stuff. But the soundtrack is absolutely beautiful. As you guys know that I enjoy listening to songs the first time without context. But it's never as impactful as you know from, you know, anime openings and songs. And then you see it used. and then you get the context, and then the song never sounds the same again. Time and time again. So, I mean, I can listen to an entire soundtrack, but I'll be honest, nothing will stick. A friend of mine played the NieR Replicant soundtrack while we were in a car together. We were on a drive for like 1 or 2 hours. And I've heard many of these songs, but honestly, in one ear, out the other. Without the context and the experience of it, it doesn't mean much. It really doesn't. So I wouldn't be getting much out of it. That's all I can tell you. It just is how it is. But then as soon as I have the experience of the songs, they stick. They stick. They stick. Beautiful soundtrack. Beautiful. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I mean, I could check it out, but like I said, it's honestly one of those in one ear, out the other. It happens to me with anime openings and all that stuff. The only thing that gets me with anime openings is the visuals, and I remember the visuals of the opening. But then when I hear the song in the anime, that's sort of replaced by the memory in the anime or the game or whatever it is. But without the context, songs I usually don't even pay attention to. Even mainstream songs, I simply do not pay attention to them. I don't listen to new songs or anything like that. I typically hear it somewhere on some occasion or see some music video or something, and then I listen to it. I don't typically go and search out music. All music that I have is connected to some sort of memory or emotion. I don't just go out and listen to new songs. I'm not that type of person. I don't get anything out of it. I could hear a song that I later love a million times and I'm like, meh. And then I have one memory with the song and then I play it on loop 1,000 times. It's like, that's how my mind works. It's just how my mind works. Whew. I said, Grandma, damn it. Songs are like toppings? Maybe. Queen Bee's song from CD Drama. Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay. Back to it. Game face. Brother, where are you going today? Yona looked up at him with worry in her eyes. She probably realized he was going far away by the way he moved. I'm going to Seafront to take care of some business. Yona silently gripped NieR's sleeve. Maybe she noticed something. Someone wanted me to pick up some seashells. Apparently, hens lay better eggs if you feed it to them. She did say that it had to be crushed, but I wonder if chickens actually eat that. It wasn't a lie. He was glad that he talked to the hen keeper's wife yesterday. All of this is true. Still, Yona didn't let go of his sleeve. That's all? Of course not. There are other things as well. It's not worth it if I'm only going to pick up some seashells. He lied just now. He wasn't asked to do anything else. The old lady in the flower shop asked me to buy some bulbs for her. They only sell tulip bulbs in Seafront, you see. Maybe he talked too much. Nevertheless, he couldn't stop. If he didn't keep lying, he wouldn't be able to hide it any longer, and Yona would see through everything. There's also the man from the material store. Will I be alone tonight? Relief washed over him as he looked upon Yona, who looked down. She didn't see anything, though. She was just lonely. She didn't see through anything. She was just lonely. She probably remembered his absence half a year ago and became anxious. Seafront is far away. Moreover, he has to pass through the shade-infested southern plains, so he has to move while the sun is bright. It's impossible to make it back within the day no matter how much you rushed. I have lots of things to do, so I won't be back immediately. You stayed home alone before, right? And you're much older than you were then. He convinced her that staying home was a big help to him, and she finally let go of his sleeve. Turning his back on worried Yona, NieR closed the door behind him. He ran without looking back. He feared that if he had stopped here, he wouldn't be able to proceed. He ran till he was out of breath and stopped. By then he lost the village behind him. He walked on and controlled his breathing. He needed to keep his stamina. The shades are quick. If he doesn't spot them out from a distance and ran with all his might, he wouldn't be able to escape them. The southern plains were huge shades roam. Is right in front of him. He knew which path to take and where to rest better than before, but somehow his footsteps were a lot heavier than before. The first time he went to Seafront to take care of business was half a year ago, to deliver an emergency letter to someone in the city, to buy tulip bulbs at the flower store and natural rubber at the material store. Remember when I didn't know where to get the goddamn natural rubber? Yeah, thank you, by the way. Oh yeah, we found it eventually, but it was like crazy expensive. And the guy at the store is like, I need natural rubber to start a store. Can you get it for me? You mean the other store that's selling it? What are you gonna do? Sell it at a more exorbitant price? Oh no, I can't afford to buy it and sell it. I need you to buy it so I can sell it.
Dyson's latest purifier.
Well, go fuck yourself, store owner. No, Dyson. I will not Dyson your Dyson. We never did his second quest. I don't even know what his second quest is. We never did his first quest. What's his second quest? Build me a house? He wanted to sell it at a faraway place where it was not available. Then why couldn't he buy it himself? Oh wait, you know what I mean? Like, he's obviously not going to pay market price for it. Feeling anxious at leaving Yona behind, he gradually put distance between him and the village. He saw the silhouette of a huge shade from afar, and ran with all his might across the plains. His first view of the ocean was beautiful, but he immediately shut his mouth against the smell of fish that prevailed over the whole city. While he walked around, both his hair and skin became disgustingly sticky. The lady at the flower shop told him it was due to the wind in the sea. His second quest is him getting stuff to deal with his seasickness. Want to know what you actually give him? Go for it. After buying the bulbs and materials, he walked into an area with huge houses. The paths were complicated, and the poor vision caused by the buildings only made it worse. He somehow delivered the letter, but he got lost on the way back. Viagra. What? Oh god, who makes it? Popola or Deviler? Oh god. You know, I found out that if you're physically active and, you know, you maintain yourself and you do weights and stuff, you won't need Viagra. Whereas a lot of guys that are like 40 and 50, they're like, need Viagra. I'm like, what? 40 and 50? And they're like, yeah, basically when you're in your mid to late 20s, your testosterone goes down and you stop craving. And I'm like, you stop craving? Like, what? What? You what? He's like, yeah, you stop being interested. I'm like, you what? What? Excuse me? Hell nah! What? Man, I would die. Oh yeah, thanks for the emoji. I need to send a message to that girl that was apparently doing our emojis. It's been 3 weeks since the order. I gotta see an update. Otherwise, I'm gonna request a refund. Is it due... he got lost. Is it due to the time, or do people here not like having to walk it out to begin with? Nick couldn't find anyone to ask for directions. He had no idea where he walked and how he walked there, and was left with no choice. Tired from all the walking, he took a rest before the front door of an unknown household. What are you doing here? A voice called out to him out of the blue, and Nier hurried away from the door. You're not one of the kids from around here. Are you lost? Maybe he'll point me the right way. Nier was relieved. That's why he wasn't alert when the man opened the door and came out. Even when asked whether he was alone or not, he nodded honestly. Uh-oh. The man smiled. Nier began to back off, but the man grabbed his arm. Oh god, oh my god. Covering his mouth and attempting to drag him inside the house, Nier tried to run but couldn't move. The man was strong. Don't you want money? He whispered into Nier's ear, giving him goosebumps. Nier used all his strength and flung away from the man's arm. The man laughed behind him. Come by whenever you want money. No, this is not the appropriate music, Deviler and Popola. He ran with all his might, hoping to escape the voice. He ran and ran, and he was out of Seafront before he even realized it. The man's voice still seemed to follow him, so NieR ran on. Dude. Oh my god, that shiver. Jesus. I had a red flag at about... What are you doing here? A voice called out of the blue, and he hurried away from the door. You're not one of the kids. Are you lost? Maybe you'll point me the right way. That's why he wasn't alerted when the man opened the door and came out. I was like, oh, okay. Even when asked whether or not he was alone, he nodded honestly. And I was like, oh god. Dude. Fuck. Dude. Dude. Ugh. I am giving my kids a fucking knife and teaching them how to stab and where. I will gladly pay for the attorney. And I'm gonna be like, Your Honor, the man tried to grab my kid, and so my kid castrated him. What if it was your child, Your Honor? I mean, fucking try. Like, imagine the judge wants to persecute a child for defending him or herself. I would literally track down photos of the judge's son or daughter and be like in court, Your Honor, what if your little girl was grabbed by a person like that? Would you be sending your little girl to juvenile detention? I'll let you be the judge. Hit him close to home. He ran with all his might, hoping to escape the... I don't want to reread that previous part. If you're watching the video, you can just rewind back 30 seconds. Don't make me go through that again. He ran with all his might, hoping to escape the voice. He ran and ran, and he was out of Seafront before he even realized it. The man's voice still seemed to be following him, so NieR ran on. Luckily, not many villagers wanted things done in Seafront. Even if they did, they had told him to do it at his convenience. Thanks to that, he forgot everything within the span of half a year. That unfortunate encounter and the man's laughter. Don't pull the pin on that hand grenade. Don't get me started. Do not get me started. Laughter. Oh, I'll give you fucking something to laugh about. However, here he was again. His footsteps naturally became heavier as Seafront loomed into sight. He wished that he'd gotten lost again, that he'd never reached his destination. However, his house was close to the entrance. Ironically, he didn't get lost this time. Now that he looked at it, it was a grand house. The man was probably wealthy. Hearing that laughter in his ears again, his feet shook. If he stepped in, he wouldn't be able to go back. He realized that he was searching for excuses to go back. Just give up on it. It's okay now. You can't hope to bear anything anymore. A voice resounded within himself. No, if you turn back now, what will happen to Yona? Yona was his heart's support during these 5 years. When he thought of what food to make her for tomorrow, he could avert his eyes from the anxiety for the future. When he was busy looking for her, he could forget his mother's absence. The fact that he, as a child, was able to make it thus far is a testament to Yona's importance. It's for Yona. When he spoke those words out, his heart was set. NieR pushed the door silently. I'd like to say that I feel rage, but right now I don't know what I'm feeling. It's not easy to describe. I'd say there's sinking. I'm kind of all over the place here. I'm just feeling this. I don't think I feel wrath yet. I feel more the despair of it all. The worst part is that he has this quiet acceptance of his circumstance, and he's basically justified it in his mind, and he's willingly doing this. That's what's depressing to me. The fact that it's not wrath that I feel right now. It's sadness. Looping back to that conversation, this man is probably wealthy by his lack of empathy and sympathy towards human beings. Because while the villagers are kindly providing charity and care for NieR, this motherfucker is probably extorting and able to do unfair business dealings with the desperate, which is why he's accumulated so much wealth. It takes a certain lack of empathy to get to that point, which is why most billionaires are psychopaths, and why most CEOs and stuff of companies are psychopaths. High-functioning psychopaths with absolutely no empathy, which is why they perform so well in cutthroat environments. This guy's probably very similar. He's able to buy assets and items from people that are desperate and starving, and sell them at exorbitant prices, probably to people that are needy and desperate and willing to literally sell their arm, leg, and life savings in order to buy medicine. That's how fucks like this get rich. And what do they do with that money? Try to fucking get underage kids. And don't get me started how that happens today in certain social circles within Hollywood and international global politics. So yes, right now I am feeling a little bit of the wrath. Just a tad. Biblical Old Testament. If I could summon the Angel of Death, I fucking would. And I still don't understand how being wrathful towards such, I'm not even going to call them animals because that's insulting to animals, can be considered a sin. It's pest control. Is it a sin to exterminate termites eating your house? Then why is it a sin to exterminate a plague, eating away the fabric of society and corrupting the innocent and the youth? How is that a sin? I don't know about you, but if there is a God, I'd be more than happy to answer to him. Oh, why did you exterminate all these assholes? Well, how much time you got, buddy? I'm more than happy to go into specific detail, but you being omnipresent, you were there with me, weren't you? Come on, you gotta admit. Who's the bad guy? But I think it's just convenient to put wrath as a sin when some of those priests are fucking pedophiles. But yes, let's not kick them out of the church or anything. Let's just relocate them. Wasn't there a kid that fucking, recently, wasn't there a kid that beat the living shit out of a priest that was trying to molest him? I think he picked up something that was on a table or something and cracked him across the head. And the kid was on trial for assault. And one of the memes was, why don't we just punish the kid the same way we punish the priest? Move him to a different church. And everyone was like, ha 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 ha. No, but seriously, juvenile detention? Anger management? And I'm like, anger management? For what? How about I fucking overpower you and start ripping off your clothes and see how you feel? Oh no, you can't do that. Excuse me, that's a fucking kid. What anger management? That was self-defense. So yes, I'm feeling a little bit of the wrath. Just a little bit. Just a little bit of unadulterated old school biblical wrath. Now, I don't hate religion. Because, you know, I never read anywhere in the Bible, you know, where it says stuff about little boys or little girls or anything like that. But I do hate the motherfuckers using religion as a means to be predators. Going after the vulnerable. And don't get me started on Oprah Winfrey's fucking orphanage in Africa where kids just so happen to go missing and somehow end up on Epstein's island. Self-made billionaire. Oh yeah. That works really well in the entertainment industry, doesn't it? It disgusts me. So well connected to the royal family, are you not? Mr. Prince Andrew? No wonder you get exclusive interviews so easily. But yeah, let's not talk about that. So yes, a little bit of wrath, just a little bit. I've had friends that have been raped. On both sides of the spectrum, guys and girls, and I know how it fucks them up. Reoccurring nightmares and shit. Hell, I had to talk one of these people out of suicide for fuck's sake. So I know the effects that it has. So don't tell me that I don't know jack shit about shit. Okay. Ah yes, this fox painting is paying dividends. Look at the fox. Be as the fox. Be as the fox. Sorry for that. Yona was kept relatively healthy. With the pain lessened, she regained somewhat of an appetite, and could feed the chickens in the garden or go to the library. The coughs continued, but luckily she wasn't coughing up blood. Yona felt nervous when NieR went to Seafront every few days. But was otherwise content. That's why he thought this was good enough, even when he felt something slowly breaking within himself to cover for Yona's medicine costs. I legitimately feel like I'm about to fucking cry. This kills me. Seriously, he's a kid. Lost both his parents at the age of 10. He's looking after his little sister. He's doing whatever he can to make sure she's okay. She gets sick. He does everything he possibly can to lessen her pain, and this is what he gets for it. Meanwhile, fucks like this go on and enjoy their lives and can do whatever they want with impunity because they're politically and financially connected. And what gets me is even worse is that some people grow up in well-off families, and don't get me wrong, I have nothing against people growing up with means. I have nothing against it. But what gets me is when some people grow up and they think that they're better than other people just because their mummy and daddy were successful in business or they inherited something from their family. It is by no means of any merit of their own that they inherited what they have. Don't get me wrong, I have nothing against people inheriting something, but I do have a problem with people that consider themselves superior to others based on something they themselves did not even earn. You are no better than someone just because you came out of your daddy's balls. That is not any testament to your qualifications or achievement as a human being. You're no better than anyone else. Even if you are gifted or intelligent or capable or successful or fortunate, that doesn't mean you're better. Your circumstances were better, sure, but that doesn't make you a better human being or more deserving of anything. It doesn't mean that suddenly that people don't matter. They're still people, they still feel, they have hopes, they have dreams. They bleed, they feel pain, they die, they're human. This is beyond pathetic. Using force and then economic coercion. It disgusts me. I would be utterly shocked if people are not disgusted by this. I would be utterly disturbed. This is predatorial. On a 15-year-old kid. This is no different from get in the van, I have candy. He made Yona regain her smile. Even now he's protecting her like this. That's fine, as long as that holds true. He could forgive himself. And he blames himself for it. He thinks that he's the one that needs to be forgiven. NieR walked with those thoughts filling his head. He was tired. He wanted to sleep without thinking of anything. That was always the case when he came back from Seafront. When was it that the way back became harder to bear than the way forward? He felt something calling his name and stopped. It was Devila. He reached the fountain without realizing it. What is it? Are you feeling bad? I'm just thinking. That's fine then, huh? You tied up your hair at the back. It gets in the way. He had gotten into the habit of tying up his hair despite giving it free roam before. Ever since then. I see, you're quite skilled, huh? Devila said, impressed, and reached out to his hair. It was an innocent gesture, he knew that, he really did. NieR? Yeah, he backed off. He's traumatized. He's traumatized by other people literally touching him. Right there. Devila said, impressed, and reached out to his hair. It was an innocent gesture. He knew that. He really did. NieR? He swatted away Devila's hand before he even realized it. So Devila, that was like a mother or a big sister to him. He instinctively swatted her hand away. That's how much trauma he's experienced. If it was a random person, sure. But even Devila, who he looked at as a mother or a big sister. And that's why he had the ponytail in part 1. This is heartbreaking. the kid's fucked. Sorry to say it, but the kid's fucked. No fucking teddy bear and hot chocolate is gonna fix this. The best you're gonna get is emotional suppression and locked away memories. That's like the best. Until hopefully at some stage you get him old enough to be able to rationalize the situation and not blame himself. Because at the moment, he's blaming himself. He's disgusted with himself. Of no fault of his own. Oh boy. The moment she touched his hair, memories of last night replayed themselves in his mind. Devila would probably scold him if he didn't say anything, but he couldn't bring himself to speak. I would like to think if Devila found out that she would go over there and burn the place to the fucking ground and crucify the fuck to a wall with his insides out and his dick in his mouth. I apologize, that was a little bit of an outburst, but you get what I mean. I would like to think that Devila and Popola would fucking murder the fuck. He did seem to get over some of the trauma after the time skip since he let his hair grow freely. Well, I mean, he was older and he was able to do, you know, higher paying tasks. But up until that point, and let's face it, he didn't exactly have to buy medicine at that point. Kane would probably help you. Oh man, Kane and I would get along really fucking well. Let me tell you that. And I wouldn't want her using her serrated blades. No, no, no. I would use a spoon. How would a spoon cut things, you say? Aha! Well, with a lot of fucking perseverance and some elbow grease. You might get some burn beforehand. I think tearing would be the more appropriate term. I don't know if you watched that previous episode of Invincible where he's pulling Elephant Man's trunk. I'm sure I could grab a pair of clamps. You know the ones that they use for steel and metal forging? Just clamp and just tug. I think Weiss said it best. These are instruments of torture. Of course this guy got a replicant body while Luis didn't. Yeah, who the fuck decided? Of course he did. Political connections. Why am I even surprised? Why am I even surprised that fucks like this have replicant bodies? I'm beginning to question every single fucking replicant right now. I mean, I get that NieR was Shadow Lord and he was the key to unlocking all of this, but I'm beginning to question everybody else. Who were they? Politicians? Businessmen? Pedophiles? Are you planning on reading the summary for the CD drama stories? I'm pretty sure I did CD drama stories. Weiss, you'll learn his story in And Then There Was None. Oh, man. Oh, man. Man, if this has me this fired up, I am worried for the rest. By the end of this, you might be able to put me in a mental asylum. Ever since he frequented Seafront, he hated people touching his hair. Not only that, he couldn't stand his own hair touching his shoulders. He couldn't help but remember how the man roughly grabbed his hair and what he was forced into after that. He tried to forget, but those experiences seemed to have deeply engraved within his five senses, and he would relive at the most inopportune times to torment NieR. He's got PTSD. Big surprise. By the way, everything's on coming up on YouTube in 4K. So if you haven't, we have a gaming channel. So that's where you can catch all the stuff that isn't in VODs. He thought about cutting his hair off, but he'd probably be asked about that. He didn't think he could respond properly. And he would definitely remember that man whenever asked. That's why he merely tied it up so that it doesn't touch his neck or shoulders. My bad, my bad. No one likes their hard work undone. I'm sorry, the words that he was finally able to utter sounded alien to himself. Oh, right. Devil are made to pluck her instrument strings again, but remembered something at the last minute. Purpler called for you. Go see her before you go home, and don't push yourself too hard. NieR smiled non-committedly. Devila didn't know anything. She was probably just worried at his tired state. If she knew, she wouldn't care for him this much. She would probably look down on him as something filthy. See, he's blaming himself, and out of shame, he's afraid to let anyone find out. That's what really fucks me with victims of abuse like this. They think that people would blame them. That's what really fucks me about these predators. They prey on that. They prey on that, and they know it. I'm telling you, hell is definitely empty. The demons are here. I don't think you can get much worse than the shit that already happens up here. He thought that Popola... What if we're all just a bunch of fucking replicants? And every time a kid is born, they're fucking reincarnated from some other asshole. Which would explain why so many people are NPCs nowadays. We have a higher population than before, but not everyone is sentient. Like beep boop. My headcanon is that Luis ate him. You know what? You know what would be a lovely headcanon? If this fuck followed the little girl and tried to get her into the ship to, you know, do what he does. And Luis just went to town, tentacles and all, disemboweled, ripped him apart. That would put a big fat smile on my face. I mean, granted, poor Luis, who herself is traumatized wanting to become human, but it would be somewhat of a cherry on the cake that is otherwise utter dog shit. That's my headcanon. The guy was literally ripped apart in the bowels of the ship, screaming, begging for help, while her giant tentacles basically covered his mouth, so he got to feel for a fraction of the second what the little boys he abused did. That gives me a little bit of solace. Just a tad. My only regret is that we couldn't bring him back and do it all over again. I know some of you are probably disturbed by what I'm saying, but I'd be more disturbed if people weren't angry about this. He thought that Popola would ask something similar, but he was wrong. Popola didn't ask him how he was. Here's another one that we can fix up if someone's got the copy-paste. He thought that Popola would say something similar, but he was wrong. Popola didn't ask him how he as. It should be how he was. One thing I think that isn't clear in the written story. Kaine raped that tan man in front of his sister. In the audio version, you can hear it. Clearly, you haven't seen my reaction to it. That's all I'm going to say to it. Go watch the reaction. You will... Well, let's just say you will find it quite interesting. Go watch it. You won't regret it. I think there's a clip of it. I think there's a clip of it on Discord. I think there's a literal clip of my reaction. What? Not there. Twitch clips. I think it's Ram. Ah, yes, of course. Echidna. I'm an asshole. Yona is adorable. Those were children. Kuma approves. Kuma likes big game music. The perfect trap. It's somewhere. I think someone made a clip. Someone made a clip. It's somewhere. It's somewhere on Discord. I swear, someone linked it to me. I watched it. I watched my reaction to it. Someone clipped it. It's somewhere here. Anyway, it's somewhere here on Discord. Like, you'll find it. I don't think clips were made. Well, YouTube can now have clips. So if I can ask something, please timestamp in comments when you find something interesting, and I can try turn it into a clip on YouTube. And then we can all be traumatized together. Like one big dysfunctional family. It's scary that is actually damn accurate. Oh man. Ew. We got family. Why is reverse cowgirl illegal in Arizona? Because you don't turn your back on family. I'm not even American. Was it Arizona or Alabama? Man, the memes, Jack. The memes! My memes will live on. I look forward to the day someone inherits my memes and they're like, who the fuck is this man talking about family? Man, whoever inherits my memes is absolutely fucked if they go through them. They're gonna look at it and think I had some sort of mental disease. I have over 200 gigabytes of those old school memes. You know back when they used to have like those black frames with the white writing at the bottom and the photo in the middle? Like the old school shit? And then like all the new ones? Man, I used to have them in like a giant folder that had like 10,000 of those and would crash because there's too many files. So I kept creating new folders. Now, I've got individual photos for different categories. I've never gone back and looked at my old memes. Imagine if I did a stream where I go back and I look at the old school memes from high school. There's probably disturbing shit in there, but it would be an experience to look at the memes that I found interesting enough to like save. My God. My God. My God. That would be a trip. Popula didn't ask him how he was, nor did she tell him to not push himself. There's a job I want you to do. He found salvation in her matter-of-fact tone. He preferred straightforwardness over worry and pity. But it's a very dangerous job. Should I even give this job to you? Popula hesitated and cut off her words. What kind of job is it? Shade slaying. To be fair, before he went on a mass shade murdering spree, he thought of the huge black shade he saw on the southern plain. He probably couldn't even stop its movements, much less defeat it. Still, the thought of rejecting this offer didn't even cross his mind. Of course, you're not alone in this. There should be around 3 people coming from cities around here. 4 people, including NieR. They're supposed to exterminate the Shades Den with just those numbers. There's a high possibility that the Shades in the Northern Plain come from there. Luckily, they're all small ones, and a normal person could probably exterminate them successfully, or so Popula said. So Popula's getting him to murder children. Popula, do you ever consider for a moment that you might be partially responsible for NieR going off tangent and murdering every Shade he encounters? Just the thought. You'll be going with adults, and Shades aren't that strong, but Popula seemed a lot more undecided than NieR was. As long as Shades are involved, his safety wasn't guaranteed. He must be prepared to be injured, and if he ran out of luck, he could die. When you put it like that. What do you mean when I put it like that? That's exactly what happened. She was sending him on shade killing missions, and he became desensitized to murdering shades. And then what? She's surprised that he murdered a bunch of shades? I'm sorry. Who put him up to it? But there's no way I could leave this alone, right? If the shades in the northern plains increase, then the village would be in danger as well. But why kill the children? Children grow into adults. Adults grow rampant and start killing people. She's just squashing their numbers. NieR, he's a psychopath. No, he's not. He's not. I could tell from this very story, he's not psychopathic. He has empathy. If he didn't have empathy, he wouldn't be looking after Yona. Even in the opening thing of this book, when he sees her about to cry because he looks sad and he stops, shows a high degree of empathy. Psychopaths don't have that. He's probably becoming sociopathic as a result of all the trauma, but he's not psychopathic, nor is he psychotic. He's not a danger to himself or other people. He's a byproduct of his environment. There's a significant difference. Psychopaths are like the little kids that go into the backyard and torture the neighbor's cat because, I don't know, they want to see what sounds it's going to make. Whereas a sociopath is the kid that's beaten by his drunken father and starts doing petty crimes as a teen, and then later becomes a criminal. He's a byproduct of his environment. He's actually a victim. Psychopaths are not victims. They're just a defect where they're born without empathy, and as a result, they don't attach themselves to anything. There's a significant difference. People get the two confused, but there's a significant difference. It might seem small, but it's a big difference. One's born, the other's created. High-functioning psychopaths, they're fucking terrifying. They make excellent surgeons, though. I'll go, and I have to pay for Yona's medicine anyway. He doesn't mind the danger, as long as the job doesn't require him to go to Seafront. See, he'd rather face death than go back to the man. See, this is what happens with trauma. You start partaking in high-risk behavior to try to numb your mind. This is why a lot of people that, you know, which go into prostitution become drug addicts. It's the only way they can get through it. I mean, people don't want to become drug-addicted prostitutes, but, you know, chicken egg scenario. You do it for money, you end up getting the drugs in order you can do the thing. Next thing you know, you're addicted to drugs and you're doing it for the drugs. It's fucked. I think the difference between NieR and Kaim is that Kaim didn't care about anyone's feelings and intentions, while NieR does care. When it comes to the shades, he doesn't bother to learn the truth. Can you blame him though? His experience with shades thus far was that they attack people and you have to avoid them and they're only weak to sunlight. Then eventually when he's old enough, he understands that adults have to kill the shades in order to stop them from attacking the villagers. So to him, the shades are nothing more than, say, a wild animal that attacks humans, right? So, I mean, do you question what the wild animal is thinking? Not really. You kind of just eliminate the threat. I mean, it's no different from having wild boars or wild goats or wild dogs or wolves or something like that near the farmland, right? You don't question how it lives, why it lives, what its hope and dreams are. You just know that if you don't do something about it, they're going to attack one of the kids playing too close to the trees. Get what I mean? It's not a matter of lacking empathy, it's more so a matter of survival. For Kaim, he is bloodthirsty for Empire blood, since they killed his parents. I didn't know that about Kime. Oh wait. Kime is from Drakengard 1. We're not talking about Tyran. But anyway. Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, violence only begets more violence. Which is why when Genghis Khan was conquering territory, any child that was taller than a wagon wheel would get his head cut off. Because if they're shorter than that, they're young enough to re-indoctrinate. If they're older than that, they're going to remember and seek vengeance. I mean, let's face it. I do understand where it's coming from. The Shadow Lord kidnapped his sister and he was willing to do anything for her. So there's a good reason to hate Shades. Well, the Shades were just an easy target. The Shadow Lord, who appears like a powerful Shade, takes his sister after he finishes fighting an incredibly powerful Shade. And the Shadow Lord's keep is in a place occupied by a fuck ton of Shades. I mean, it's not a stretch to associate Shades with the enemy and think Shades bad. First they were killing innocent people, now they kidnapped my sister and attacked our town. I'm sorry, but I don't blame the guy for wanting to kill Shades. I mean, if Devil and Popola didn't want him to go exterminating Shades, they should have probably handled the situation slightly more delicately than they did. Just saying. They didn't exactly do themselves any favors. He doesn't mind the danger, as long as the job doesn't require him to go to Seafront. NieR doubted his ears when he heard the amount. If he wanted to earn that much money, how many times would he have to drag himself to the man's house? How many times would he have to endure that kind of humiliation? He was shocked at the difference in value between the pay for the Shade slaying and his own body. NieR doubted his ears when he heard the amount. If he wanted to earn that much money, how many times would he have to drag himself? Wait, I'm trying. I'll leave it to you then. It's a dangerous job, but the pay is good. NieR doubted his ears when he heard the amount. If he wanted to earn that much money, how many times would he have to drag himself to the man's house? How many times would he have to endure that kind of humiliation? He was shocked at the difference in the value between the pay for the Shades and his body. Does that mean that the amount he was being paid by the old man was less than the amount he was being paid to kill Shades? Because the amount he was getting paid to kill Shades in the game, you're thinking that killing Shades makes more money than going... So not only did the old man use him, he didn't even relatively pay him that much. The man basically only gave him enough for Yona's medicine and for food. Yes, but I had assumed Yona's medicine was exorbitantly expensive because the ingredients are foreign, you know, to the local area. So the price of Yona's medicine was an anomaly. But now we have a comparison for relativity, and the relativity is that they're about to exterminate a Shade Den, which is dangerous, but they're children. And he was shocked at the amount of pay. And it's multiple trips to the man's house. And the man is apparently wealthy given the size of his home. So relative to the man's wealth, it's not much. So not only is he a monster, but he's a fucking monster. See, this is why I believe when these fucks are caught, we just throw them into Gen Pop We stand in the middle of Gen Pop and read the accounts of what they did to these children. We put them in their cell. We go out of Gen Pop and then we unlock every single fucking cell door simultaneously and let the prisoners dish out their justice. Now you might say that this is unfair because a single prisoner is easily overpowered by many, but I would like to see it as poetic justice. I've met a few criminals in my time, and they were not necessarily bad people. But one thing I did learn about many of these individuals that society likes to label as criminals is that we have a joint disdain for these fucks. And also that a lot of these people were traumatized as children, which is why I'm so knowledgeable as to what happens with sociopaths and how it sort of happens. Like a lot of these people that I've met were actually very traumatized in their child. I don't know why they tell me these things. People tell me more details than they need to. Maybe because I listen and I don't judge. I don't know. But I found that we have a joint disdain for these motherfuckers. Whereas most law-abiding citizens, politicians, and Hollywood directors, for some reason don't, to the point that they try to legalize pedophilia. Excuse me? Oh, pedophilia is a sexual orientation. Fucking excuse me? What's next? Let's give 6-year-olds guns and alcohol? And people wander up while all those child actors and actresses get so fucked up at the age of 18. You think they just buy all those drugs because they have a lot of money? No, there's also a significant amount of trauma. Young kids don't get all those roles because they're talented. If you want a good frame of reference, go play Danganronpa Ultra Despair Girls. I'll give you a character, Kodako. I'll do it. I don't care if it's dangerous or not. Please take care. Popola's eyes weren't filled with sadness or pain, nor were they filled with pity or sympathy. They were filled with another kind of darkness. NieR realized it when he saw those eyes. Popola, and maybe even Devila knew how he earned enough money to buy too expensive medicine, and the price he had to pay. They knew. And that's why he was referred to a high-paying job despite its dangers. I don't know about you, but they're sending him with 3 adults that are probably well-equipped to handle the situation. And in the group of 4, he's probably the apprentice here. And there's a good chance that they're paying him more than his fair cut. Because let's face it, he's not going to be pulling the same weight as the other 3. But, I mean, you know what I mean? The moment his secrets were revealed, his face burnt with shame. At the same time, he was thankful for Devila and Popola who treated him no differently. Why did he even think that he would be looked down upon? There's no way that they would do it. So they eventually found out, or he told them. Thank you, Popola. However, the darkness in Popola's eyes did not disappear. I don't know about you, but if I found out someone did this to NieR or Yona, I'd be kind of the same. The gates of fucking hell would be open. I would like to think that Devila and Popola literally went over to Seafront, grabbed little Luis, and put him inside the man's chest, and let her feed from inside his body while she grows. Until she eventually just... all those little tentacles start coming out of his ears, nostrils, and eyes. That's the headcanon I have. That they face-hugged the little girl inside him. And that he could slowly feel her growing from within him, eating from within, and he could do nothing. While being in agonizing pain as she chewed on his lungs, his kidneys. I hope the darkness led to Devil and Purple erasing him from existence and deleting his data from the project. I fucking hope so! I would hope the Devil and Purple were curating some of these fucks. I genuinely hope so. Because we know that the replicants' personality profiles are from the originals. Even if the replicants go on a tangent and make different decisions, their personality data is that of the individuals. So there is going to be somewhat of a correlation on the way they handle situations. Because of personality data, obviously. So I would sincerely hope that this motherfucker was plucked out of it. Because we don't need this fucker in the gene pool. Oof. Oh, man. We're going the whole 9 yards with the emotional journey here. The rendezvous point was at the northern gate. Not many people daily around in this village, so NieR knew that 2 men were hired for the same job as he was. However, they never expected to be accompanied by such a young boy. They frowned when they saw NieR and told him to go back. Kids like you should get the hell out of here. We're not here for fun, you know? I know, so get out. I'm not gonna sleep well if a random kid dies in front of me. How could he convince them to let him go with them? He didn't want to lose his opportune job. When NieR tried to stand his ground, a voice resonated. The hell are you guys arguing about? He knew the voice. But it's the one he didn't want to remember. He knew who it was even without turning around for confirmation. Why are you here? Oh, you're from this village, huh? It's the man from Seafront. NieR's questions about his presence were answered the moment he saw the man's sword. A large number of swords were on display in his house. He brought them all for collecting purposes, and all of them told of murder. People who have twisted sexual preferences and eccentric collections as well. Little NieR, please cut his Achilles tendons and let him try to crawl out of the cave and leave the little baby shades to devour him. It is poetic that he be ended by little children. Please, and allow his cries to echo from the cave. And let the 2 other men see you, for your reputation as a slayer of both shade and man will be known far and wide. The 2 men seemed to know the man from Seafront. NieR could tell from their conversation that they often met each other on jobs like these. The man probably took on shade slaying jobs for a chance to put his collections to practice. You know this kid? Ah, I know him very well, right? The man from Seafront smiled meaningfully at NieR. This kid won't be a burden. He's strong enough to fling away a grown man. And not that shabby in his speed either. Oh, so he remembers that. He was talking about their first meeting. NieR turned his face away. But the man still looked upon him out of interest. Don't be fooled by his womanly face. He's quite stubborn. Very good endurance as well. Really? Really? So it's not enough to do what you did, but you're also gonna do that? Really? You gotta debase him in front of other people? Nier's hands and feet froze out of their own accord. He couldn't even fling away the hand placed on his shoulder. The kid's fucking petrified. He might be surprisingly useful. Well, I'm also quite interested in seeing him cry in fear at the sight of shades. If you say so, I guess we could take him along. Really? You want to see him cry in fear at the sight of shades? What is he? A piece of amusement for you? Is that what human life is for you? Because if that's the case, I would love to amuse myself with what's left of your pitiful life, which I prolong. Let me just stop on the medical center at home to get some IV so you don't run out of liquid. His hatred of the man could not be put into words. Oh, I feel that. However, it was thanks to his words that NieR was able to keep at his job. How humiliating. It's for Yona's sake. Everything is to protect her. He gripped his fists tightly and repeated the mantra in his heart. He felt a pressure at the back of his hand. What's with that stare, huh? No, it wasn't even strong enough to be called pressure. But NieR couldn't move. Don't think of trying anything funny. I taught you that, didn't I? The man whispered in a deep voice that the other two couldn't hope to catch. His voice and breath flowed into NieR's ear like poison. NieR clenched his mouth tightly. The man's fingers were intertwined in NieR's tied-up hair. They pulled, and his hair fell loose. The man left while laughing. NieR wanted to retie his hair as soon as possible, but he couldn't do it. As he picked up the fallen hair tie, he realized that his hands were shaking uncontrollably. The Shade's nest was near the mountain ranges in the plains. He knew that the twisting, narrow paths led to a cave. It's not far-fetched for sunlight-fearing Shades to take up residence there. As they came close to entering the mountain paths, his hands tightened with anxiety. This was the first time he held a sword since he went hunting for sheep with the village adults. Back then, he held a blunt sword to bludgeon the animals. But it's different this time. Popola lent him an old sword from the library storage room for his job. NieR didn't know what a sword looked like after cutting humans, but the moment he saw the darkly lit blade, he instinctively knew that it shed blood once. Despite being such a dangerous weapon, the sword felt natural in his hands, almost as if it was waiting for him to pick it up. The wind feels strangely wet. The man in the front turned his head. Now that he mentioned it, the air's coldness and heaviness seem to foreshadow rain. However, the sky above is blue and unobstructed by any clouds. Let's get this over with quickly and go back. We'll be in trouble if it rains. Wow, and I just heard a piece of thunder. There's still some distance before the cave. They increased their pace. Though there were no clouds, the weather could still change without warning. However, they thought wrong. What became worse wasn't the weather, but their vision. Fog! The wet wind seemed to be the harbinger of fog. Before they even realized it, the thick fog... Bah! Chottomate. It happens sometimes. The wet wind seemed to be the harbinger of fog. Before they even realized it, the fog thickened until they couldn't see the sky's color anymore. What do we do now? Go back for now and come back later? The fog's not gonna matter if we're in the cave. Let's just go, the man began. A few black shadows appeared on the other side of the mist. Shades! When they turned around, black shadows were closing in from the back. They were surrounded. I see. They weren't just living in the caves. This whole area is their nest. The shades weren't confined to the caves. They could move anywhere as long as the sunlight was dim. The sun doesn't shine that long on the mountain ranges to begin with. Narrow paths and frequent fog provided great living conditions for shades. They're coming, a voice shouted. The black shadows were right before his eyes. Nier swung down the sword he held. What he felt, though, through the blade was blunt and heavy. He felt like he was killing a sheep. The moment he thought that, he saw crimson. He was showered in warm fluid. It was blood. It stunk the same way as the black blood that Yona coughed up. The first time he saw the shade's blood, Nier hesitated. Though the shades look like mere shadows, cutting them feels like cutting animals. They bleed crimson. However, they don't leave a corpse when defeated. The shades he slew became black mists and lost their shape. Only a pile of crimson black blood remained. What are shades? His question was quickly filed into the back of his mind. Now's not the time for that. What the shades lacked in size, they made up for in number. He couldn't afford to think. He swung his sword as if in a trance, and repeatedly bathed in their shed blood. No matter how many he killed, black shadows kept appearing from the fog. Their silhouette strangely resembled that of a human. They have a head, they have limbs, they move while standing upright. After some time, he couldn't tell whether he was killing humans or not. Maybe he wasn't killing shades, but humans all along. Is this sickly crimson fluid human blood? He saw familiar clothing in front of him. It was the man from Seafront. He was too focused on testing out his favorite sword and took no heed to Nier's presence. He saw the man's thin smile. His head was repeatedly showered in blood. He resembled a monster more than a human. Maybe he himself had the same expression. He must have been killing those shades wearing the same expression as this man. Somewhere in his heart, he enjoyed slaughter. 3, 4. He must have been proud of himself for killing all those shades. Who are the real monsters? The shades or themselves? The fog thickened. He had no idea how many shades he slew. His head was still numb, and he couldn't think straight. But he was confident that he took out almost all of them in the area. Nier breathed deeply, and went back the way he came. He didn't suffer any major injuries, but scratches and bruises couldn't be avoided. A numb pain filled his entire body. The shades shed blood on his hand and feet dried up, and he felt strange whenever his movements tore into the blood. Maybe his sense of smell got used to it, but he must be stinking of the untrained nose. But he must be stinking to the untrained nose. Anyways, he had to wash himself soon. He didn't have enough stamina left to run, but he tried to walk as fast as he could. Eventually, the fog dissipated from his vision, and he caught up with the two men. They're the two who tried to chase NieR back in the northern gate. One of them was dragging his feet, and the other's left arm was bent at a weird angle. I must have been extremely lucky to get away with only a few injuries, NieR thought after looking at them. When they saw NieR, the two men widened their eyes. They probably thought that the shades had killed him. You're alive! NieR silently nodded. It's just as he said, huh? You're far from a burden. Heck, you're the liveliest out of all of us. I'm impressed, the man began, but changed his expression when he remembered something. What happened to him? Wasn't he with you? This time NieR shook his head. True. We never thought there'd be that many. It's a miracle that we even survived. The man laughed and apologized to NieR. We really shouldn't have brought you along. It must have been hard on a child. No. With this, he could buy the medicine. Yoko would be released from her suffering. It's for my sister, so... Yes. He would do anything for Yoko. Anything. No matter how great the danger or how dirty its nature. I see. Well, I'm glad you're fine. The man with his left arm injured patted NieR on his back with his right arm and said, let's go back. Carrying the man with a leg injury on his back, NieR walked silently for a while. They walked through the mountain paths and crossed the northern plains on high alert. They can't afford to be attacked here, but luckily the sky was clear and no shades could be seen on the plains. NieR recalled the huge shade he saw in the southern plains. It had limbs and stood on its hind legs as well. I never thought that humans and shades were so alike. He called them black monsters when he was small. When he first saw the real thing, he thought they were like shadows. But he never thought of them in connection to humans. Really? Are they that alike? The two men tilted their heads. They bleed when you cut them, and they feel the same. And the same applies to sheep and goats. They bleed, and they feel like shades when you cut them. What a weird kid, the two men laughed. It seemed like they never thought about the difference between shades and humans. Well, if you actually kill a human, it might feel different from a shade or a sheep, but you can't just put it into practice. Put it into practice. He looked upon his blood-stained hands. His palms dried in the dark crimson color, a color ambiguous about its nature. Human blood or shade blood. The man from Seafront was dead. Didn't have to go to his house ever again. What's wrong? You hurting somewhere? NieR came back to himself after hearing the worried tone. NieR brought his eyes away from his hands and shook his head. Just thinking that I have to go home quickly. The image of Yoko waiting by the second floor window floated in his mind. She'll probably greet him with a smile today, just like all the other days. He doesn't have to think any more than that. Nothing more than protecting Yoko, such a simple thing. He felt something being lifted from his shoulders and looked up to the sky. With the same vast expanse of blue, a single cloud drifted along, carried by the wind. Why do I feel like Devila purposely organized this little escapade when she knew there would be a fog? Why do I feel like this was part of some plan? Clearly Devila would have ins with guards, and she's got an information network and she would be able to find out who it was. Just saying. Just the thought. I mean, you saw her eyes. And she even gave him the blade. And she even organized 3 people. Just enough. And NieR. And a fog. Opportunity. I'd like to think that Devil has set up this circumstance to give NieR the opportunity. I don't know. I somehow imagine Devila sitting on one of the hills, watching while this is happening. Just looking, just in case something happens, to bail NieR out. You know, just in case. But giving him this opportunity to extract his revenge. This is what I see. That's what I see. At least NieR got to conquer his personal demons. Well, that's basically it. That's the therapy. Conquering your fear straight in the face and laughing at it. And occasionally ripping out its throat and dragging its face across the pavement for 2 kilometers. But you get what I mean. That's probably why he got over the feeling. He could leave it in the past. Well, I guess Louise wasn't the one to exterminate him, was she? But I'm okay with this ending. I would like to believe that as the old man was finishing and he was smiling, he walks up to NieR with some smart aleck comment, and NieR just thrusts that blade right through his chest. Just right in there. Right through the chest and the lung. And the old guy is just fucking shocked. And NieR could actually enjoy watching the life leave this guy's eyes. I don't know if that's how he would have done it, but it would be a nice feeling. To have the old man feel so fucking helpless. And then try to lift up his right arm with the sword. And NieR would just grab it gently with his left on the wrist. And the old man can't do anything while he squabbles. Just trying to fight back. Couldn't do anything with his left arm. Can't do anything with his right. And then as he tries to scream, NieR can just cover his mouth with his right hand. He doesn't have enough strength to pull out the blade, can't lift up his arm, and he can't scream. Would be such poetic justice. A seaman's death ambiguous. It's nice. It's juicy. The ambiguity is what gives this story its essence, its flavor. I can't believe this story on its own took more than 3 hours. But you know what? It was a fucking good one. This was a fucking good one. This story was absolutely amazing. Yoko Taro knows how to write an engaging emotional story. Oh yeah. He would definitely... Oh, founding Grimoire Nier. So this is a book. Oh, so this is a collection of stories. And then there were none. The Stone Flower, The Red and the Black, A Little Princess, Magic Mountain. Jesus, so this is a full-on book. Wow. NieR performs an increasingly dangerous demands to afford Yona's medicine. Fear arrives in facades and grow up alongside a boy from the town. Oh my god. You know what's gonna be a nightmare? If we are forced to replay the game one last time after reading all these stories. I'm kind of surprised that they didn't include these books in the English release. The Lost World Apex. Oh. In the aftermath of ending E, the male administrator wakes up alone on the beach. Oh yeah, we're definitely gonna read this. But imagine playing this game after reading all these stories. The game would not feel the same, and you fucking know it. I think we're gonna have to do that. We've done it blind, but playing it after all these stories,
it would be different. The town would be different. Remember how that there was that really rich house with the fucking door up on right close to the entrance? And I was like, which rich fuck lives here? I want to read these stories. I want to read them. I genuinely want to read them. I know it's taken us a little while, given the tangent and the discussion we went on, but I feel that that's what makes this enjoyable as it is. And this has been a roller coaster of emotion, particularly this story. It was not an easy one. And even prior to finding out what happened, I felt a lot, particularly around how NieR was going around the village and, working, and he got a chick, and that, story about the little chicken and my grandfather's farm and all these other things, and, my grandfather and all that. It was quite a journey. And then going into this fiend, it was quite a roller coaster. I wish they added the story in the remake version instead of the mermaid story. It's more relevant. Well, I would love to read the Little Mermaid story to find out more about Louise, because, I mean, in the end, and you sort of feel it a little bit. You're kind of like, fuck. She's a shade, I get it. But if she didn't have the belief that consuming people would make her human, she wouldn't technically be bad. Just because she's a shade and she has power doesn't make her bad. It's just that belief that consuming people would make her human. And her motivation to become human was not malicious in nature. It was because she wanted to spend time with the mailman, who was kind to her. I mean, that's... It's sad. I would suggest Around the World in 80 Days. I think they made a movie or something about it. Imagine a DLC with all these stories as extra scenarios. I don't think it would have the same impact. I think reading these type of stories, similar to Kaine's grandmother story within the game, hits different because we imagine and associate what we're reading with what's already in our minds. And that's why it hits close to home. Whereas if we were watching and interacting with, a CGI rendered game, it wouldn't hit the same. It just wouldn't. But imagine finishing off the man yourself. Well, you can imagine finishing him off. You may do so as many times as you like. In different ways, too. That's the gift that Yoko Taro gave us with the ending. It was open to interpretation. You can imagine how NieR did it. And it's strongly implied that he did, because he's looking at his hand. It's like, human blood, replicant blood. I mean, hell, he could have just walked up to his corpse and been like, is he dead? Oh, he's dead, Or he could have done it himself. He could have stabbed him from behind. He could have stabbed him from the front. He could have tortured him a little. He could have shish kebabbed him a little. He could have done half a dozen things. I think after Devil and Purple learned the truth, they started to put this scenario into motion and set everything up for him. I believe so too. I strongly believe that Devila or Popola, the one with the black eyes in particular, she was overlooking this entire thing. I don't think she would have just let NieR go out into a cave like this without, she was probably flying overhead. It wouldn't surprise me if she was the one that created the mist. It does show how far NieR was willing to go for Yona, and how both Gestalt and Replicants didn't deserve the cruel fates that awaited them. Oh yeah. Even from the beginning of the game when I started playing it, I could feel that NieR was a good brother. He was always putting Yona first, and I could feel it from the beginning that he was a good brother. I didn't know at the time to what extent he actually went to, but I'm not surprised that he did. I mean, the boy would have done anything for his sister. And that's why I feel so strongly, for the Shadow Lord as well. In the ending, when Yona literally gets up and he's on the ground and he's begging her. He is fucking begging her not to do what she's about to do. And she expels the shade and dies. I mean, you gotta feel for the bastard. Neither of them deserved what happened. Not the Yonas, not the Niers, not the Kaines, not the Emils. None of them deserved it. Hell, Automata too. I get androids, function, mission, but at a certain point, they developed sentience and they questioned their purpose and they tried to fight the fate that bound them. And then they discover the truth and the existential crisis. A2, 2B, 9S. None of them deserved it. And hell, they're the survivors. What about all the A and B units that died throughout the stories leading up to NieR Automata? What about A2's entire squad that made her who she is? Did any of them deserve it? They did not. They all had personality. I feel that one of them liked flowers, right? They came up with their own names. They stopped using their designations. They came up with names. They developed personalities. They became people. And their lives were cut short for what? What about Adam and Eve? I don't really hold them, they're not antagonists. I get it. They're antagonists in the game, but they were a life form that was created that, consumed human knowledge. Read a little bit of too much Genesis, but you get what I mean. And one was curious as to bring me the humans. The other one was like, what's the point of doing any of this, All I need is my brother. How is that different to Yona and NieR? How is that different to Kaine and her grandmother? They're all victims of their circumstance. What about all the robots in the robot village? What about Pascal? Who's just trying to pass on knowledge to the machines and preaches peace. And ultimately it goes to shit. Did any of them deserve it? What makes one more deserving than the other? What about, I forgot her name, Sona or whatever, the robot, the first boss in NieR Automata. They wanted to become more beautiful because she was infatuated by that asshole robot that's fucking Paul, whatever the fuck he is. She's also a victim. They're all victims. Did any of them deserve it? No. That's the cruel reality. Simone, that's the one. All these stories, God fucking damn it, Yoko Taro. What is in that fucking head of yours, buddy? It's a beautiful franchise. It's a shame so many people just stop at the games. Do you really want to know? Would we be able to process what's going on in there? I can see that Yoko Taro has a lot of sadness in there. I probably have a lot more wrath in there. And he has a lot more sadness. Or maybe he's just able to articulate his emotions far better than I am able to. Through storytelling. Which you gotta give the man props. He probably has plenty of wrath in there too. Man, we're jumping down that rabbit hole, aren't we? We're going deep into this franchise, and I'm really happy about it. I'm really happy that this game got a remake. I know a lot of you were saying, play the original Nier when we played Automata, and as always, I'm always hesitant because I'm always hopeful that remakes and HD releases will happen, and luckily it did. And that's why I'm so hesitant and pushing back when people say, play Drakengard, because I'm going, guys, like, if there was ever a time for remakes to happen, it's now. So, Yoko, Taro, come on. Poke, poke, poke sort of thing. No, I'm happy we're doing this. I love this. So guys, thank you for joining me. We obviously don't have enough time for another story. I will continue editing.
Vice, you dumbass! Start making sense, you rotten book, or you're gonna be sorry! Maybe I'll rip your pages out one by one, or maybe I'll put you in the goddamn furnace! How can someone with such a big smart brain get hypnotized like a little bitch, huh? Oh, Shadow Lord, I love you, Shadow Lord! Come over here and give Vice a big sloppy kiss, Shadow Lord! Now pull your head out of your goddamn ass and start fucking helping us!